Chapter 1571. The 9 experts emitted a monstrous aura as they approached Yenwu City. All living beings in the region felt a great pressure. Enemy attack. In Yenwu City, the disciples of the Jiyu family reacted immediately. In the ancient city, formation marks soared into the sky and intertwined above the ancient city. The Jiyu family had activated the City Protection Grand Formation. However, a part of the formation had already been destroyed by the half-step saint. Part of the formation marks had been erased by the power of the half-step saint, so its power had been greatly reduced. Rumble, formation runes interweaved, and a powerful energy wave spread out from the ancient city in all directions. The great formation suppressed the surroundings, causing the void to tremble. Even though a corner of the formation had been destroyed by the half-step saint, the formation still emitted energy waves equivalent to the immortal emperor realm, which could stop immortal emperors and Shen King. Someone had lured Jiyu Fei away, and then attacked the Jiyu family of the land of shamans. Jiyu Fei had left Yenwu City, but He Tian had come. At this time, 9 figures appeared outside the ancient city. The activation of the City Protection Grand Formation stopped them. Hasn't the formation been destroyed? What's going on? The 9 experts were bewildered. The energy wave coming from the formation was very strong. This kind of power was definitely at the Celestial Emperor realm. It was a power that surpassed the immortal realm. Uncle He, in the ancient city, Jiyu Zhong was incomparably nervous. Even his master, Bloody Massacre, couldn't stop the opponent. What kind of power was this? Even Jiyu Zhong didn't know what kind of power was targeting the Jiyu family. In the ancient city, the surviving disciples of the Jiyu family felt despair again. The aura of the newcomer was too strong. The Jiyu family couldn't fight against such an existence. It doesn't matter. They are just a few clowns. Watch how I deal with them. Mahakala laughed, and immediately activated the defensive formation. Countless beams of divine light burst out from the ground, and in the middle of the ancient city, a platform rose up, with a circumference of 30 feet. It was an ordinary formation platform that was not made of rare divine materials. However, this ordinary formation platform was surrounded by countless formation patterns. He Tian soared into the sky and landed on the platform. How can the formation that I, Old Black, set up be so easily broken? He Tian sat cross-legged on the array platform, his whole body covered with array patterns. He used his own array patterns to activate the entire protective array, regaining control of it. The incomplete runes on the platform were quickly replenished, and a pitilessly powerful aura spread out from the ancient city, shaking the heavens and earth. Outside Yenwu City, the 9 experts felt an extremely powerful pressure coming from the ancient city. The ancient city seemed to have turned into a huge mountain that stood in front of them. The information was wrong. The leader's face became very unsightly. They had already thought of a way to lure the fiend away, but the ancient city's protective array did not seem to be damaged. How was this possible? A half-step saint had already broken a corner of the formation. Could it be that the people of the Jiyu family had already repaired the protective array so quickly? Then do we continue? Someone hesitated. The ancient city's protective array was still intact. Even if they used their trump cards, it would still be difficult for them to break in. Moreover, if they damaged the ancient city, there would be serious consequences. Their only goal was to obtain the ancient city. Since we are already here, if we don't do something, we will inevitably be punished when we go back. That person's temper is not very good, said a tall old man. Hearing the old man's words, everyone fell silent. Buzz. The leader made his move. A divine sword flew out from behind him, emitting a sword cry that sounded like a dragon's roar and releasing a dazzling sword light. It was a dark green sword light, and it illuminated the entire sky with a pale green color. A powerful wood elemental force burst out from the sword light. Azure wood sword. Could it be an expert under Ancestor Emu of the East? In the sky above the ancient city, Jiyu Zhong was shocked when he saw the scene outside the city. The person who came was extremely powerful, and he was also a person with a great background. That person wielded the azure wood sword, and a dark green sword light soared into the sky. It was like a heavenly sword, and it emitted endless killing intent as it slashed towards the ancient city in front of it. Swish! The shocking sword light broke through the void and split the heaven and earth. It was as if the sword had split the heaven and earth into two halves. This sword already possessed the power of a saint-level expert. A wisp of saint's power spread out from the sword light. Interesting. He Tian, who was sitting cross-legged on the platform, felt the power of this sword and couldn't help but feel surprised. He didn't expect these people outside the city to have such a method. He Tian directly slapped upwards on the platform. Endless power gathered in his palm, and it turned into a huge palm that was like a mountain, and it met the sword light that was slashing down. This was a huge palm that was surrounded by countless formation patterns. He Tian's attack had activated the power of the whole formation. Although it was just a palm, the entire sky shook under his palm. The huge palm and the sword light instantly collided, and the whole world suddenly became silent. In the next moment, a muffled sound rang out, and the sword light and the huge palm instantly collapsed. The two forces collided, and it turned into a destructive force that swept out in all directions. A series of pitch-black spatial cracks extended into the distance, like terrifying black lightning streaking across the void, causing one's heart to palpitate. A powerful pressure descended from the sky, and the entire ancient city was shaking. The disciples of the Jiyu family in the city were already scared out of their wits, and they even forgot to dodge. Boom! A divine light rushed out from the center of the ancient city, and a wave of power burst out. He Tian controlled the platform, and it rose from the ground, and came to the sky above the ancient city. "You dare to bully my little nephew, you are courting death." He Tian's cold eyes swept across the 9 experts outside the city, without a trace of emotion, as if he was looking at 9 corpses, and his words were full of killing intent. The information was wrong. How could there be such an expert in the divine city? The leader of the people outside the city had an extremely ugly expression on his face. This was a fatal mistake. There was actually such a person in the city, and the situation had become incomparably dangerous. "Kill!" The tall old man suddenly roared, and with a flip of his hands, a red divine spear appeared in his hands, and a monstrous killing intent was emitted from the divine spear. Swoosh! The old man directly held the divine spear, and through the void, he stabbed it towards He Tian, who was in the sky above the ancient city. A mournful blood light rushed out from the divine spear, and pierced through the sky, and in an instant, it stabbed in front of He Tian, and its speed was extremely fast. Tilda. Chapter 1572. Indestructible Martial Sovereign Volume 2 Chapter 1580. Killing a Powerful Emperor. Kill Almighty Emperor Eternal Martial Lord. Chapter 1580. Indestructible Martial Sovereign. Chapter 1580. Revenge. Chapter 1580. Killing a Powerful Emperor. Xuanhuan Fantasy. Indestructible Martial Sovereign Volume 2 Chapter 1580. Killing a Powerful Emperor. Return to Indestructible Martial Lord. Catalog Volume 2 Chapter 1580. Killing a Powerful Emperor. Novel name of Killing Almighty Emperor. Indestructible Martial Sovereign Type. Xuanhuan Fantasy. Indestructible Martial Sovereign Type. Xuanhuan Fantasy. Indestructible Martial Sovereign. Remember, pure text, update quickly. 9 experts, every one of them was a powerful existence, some were even powerful emperors. This was a force so powerful that it made the Jiyu clan feel despair. City of Immortal Cultivators. Supreme Treasure. Pure such a force was enough to run amok in the human realm. These 9 experts were actually willing to be ordered around by someone else. This was something that even He Tian did not expect. It was hard to imagine who could order around such people. At this time, He Tian did not have time to think about these things. What he needed to do now was to defeat all 9 of them and resolve the Jiyu clan's crisis. Shua. Outside the city, a tall almighty emperor made his move. He held a blood-colored divine spear in his hand and thrust it straight at He Tian, who was above the ancient city. It was a simple thrust, but it made He Tian feel danger. Mournful blood light soared tens of thousands of zhong, piercing through the heavens and the earth. In an instant, it pierced towards He Tian, breaking through layers of formation runes. He Tian's eyes flashed. He stretched out his right hand and pressed forward. Bang! A blood-red light collided with his hand. His palm was filled with formation runes. The power of yin and yang interweaved and the qi of the great Tao permeated his hand. Destroy the mortal's cultivation. Tens of thousands of zhong of bloodlight exploded. A blood-red spear was sent flying. The elder soared into the sky and grabbed the divine spear that had been sent flying back. Then, he charged towards my Tian. An extremely horrifying aura swept through the surroundings. Buzz. At the same time, the sound of the sword rang out again. The azure wood sword flew up again, drawing upon the yi wood essence. It seemed to transform into an immortal sword light and flew towards He Tian. Even He Tian was moved by the two almighty emperors attacking at the same time. Free novel, reckless fool. A grim smile appeared on He Tian's face. He waved his hands in front of him and streams of yin and yang essence qi transformed into formation runes, which he branded in the air. Rumble, the entire world shook. From all directions, spiritual energy crazily gathered towards He Tian. A massive yin-yang Dao diagram appeared in the skies above the ancient city. Streams of yin and yang essence energy fell down from the yin-yang Dao diagram in the sky, protecting He Tian within. Whether it was the azure wood sword or the crimson divine spear, none of them could break through. The yin and yang essence qi had turned into matrix patterns and activated the power of the great path. At this moment, He Tian was already in an invincible position. The two almighty emperors were forced to retreat. Everyone was shocked to the extreme. How can we fight like this? Some people could already see that He Tian had activated the power of the entire world. His body was one with the matrix. Every move he made was filled with great power. It was the legendary unfettered world. The land of the sorcerer had changed. It was no longer a barren land. In the eyes of a matrix master like He Tian, the general trend of the world could be used by humans. For a matrix master, such a place was absolutely advantageous. Let's go. Without hesitation, the leader saw that the situation was hopeless. He immediately put away the azure wood sword and wanted to retreat. The other side was too strong. It was difficult to break through the ancient city. The other almighty emperors also retreated into the distance. You think you can come and go as you please? He Tian was not happy. As he moved his mind, all the matrix patterns that he had imprinted in the void appeared in an instant. The whole world suddenly changed color. The whole earth trembled. The power of the veins of the earth hidden in the depths of the earth outside the ancient city was activated. Ridges quickly rose from the ground, like giant dragons swimming on the earth. What? The 9 great experts were completely stunned. What kind of technique was this? It was changing the world. The general trend of the world was already in the hands of the other side. This was a killing tribulation of heaven and earth. It was extremely terrifying. Bam! A stream of essence qi from the earth rushed out from the depths of the earth and turned into a giant dragon. It directly swallowed an almighty emperor. Even a powerful almighty emperor could not withstand a single blow from the essence qi of the earth. Cultivation rampage. The remaining 8 cultivators could not help but gasp when they saw this scene. Buzz. The middle-aged cultivator in the lead activated the azure wood sword and slashed forward. He broke through the layers of power of the earth and actually broke a hole in the general trend of the world. This almighty emperor was fighting with his life. After slashing out with the sword, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Although this sword had broken the sure-kill situation, it had also injured his vitality. Open for me. The tall elder wielded the crimson divine spear and charged forward. Wherever the divine spear went, the heavy earth qi was dispersed. It was unstoppable. The two almighty emperors had successfully killed their way out. However, the other almighty emperors did not have the cultivation and strength of almighty emperors. They also did not have powerful divine weapons. One by one, the figures were swallowed by the general trend of the world. So what if they were almighty emperors? In front of the world, they were still as weak as ants. The 9 great experts were charging at him with a menacing aura. Strong pull. Jian Jian Ci invaded Xinjiao discord made up of Zhen Yu Nu Yi. Di. Great pods of the Shanghu mountain range killing 7 supreme beings in one go. Such a result caused Jiyu Zhong to be dumbfounded. This senior Uncle He was simply too sick. One must know that those who were killed by him were all supreme beings. The two almighty emperors fled in the direction of the central plains like stray dogs. At this moment, He Tian's figure had already disappeared from the platform. Not only had he repaired the great city barrier array, but he had also added many changes to it. This grand formation was no longer the same grand formation as before. I'd like to see who's the mastermind behind all of this. He Tian followed the two almighty emperors who were lucky enough to escape. He saw the two almighty emperors heading towards the central plains. They soon left the shaman land and entered the central plains. Could it be that a great sect from the central plains wants to destroy the Jiyu family? He Tian followed them secretly. The two almighty emperors in front of him could not sense He Tian's presence at all. They were very careful, but they could not detect He Tian's presence. About 2 hours later, the two almighty emperors arrived outside a huge mountain. It was a mountain range in the central plains, and there was spiritual qi lingering in the mountain range. He Tian hid in the dark and looked at the surrounding terrain. His expression gradually became solemn. This place was extraordinary. There were earth veins passing through the ground, and spiritual qi was surging in the depths of the mountain range. It was a place where spiritual qi gathered, which was very rare. Just as the two almighty emperors were about to enter the mountain range in front of them, a figure walked over from the front. The person seemed to be walking slowly, but in reality, he was extremely fast. With a flash, that person passed through the middle of the two almighty emperors. Then, the heads of the two almighty emperors flew into the air. Two extremely powerful almighty emperors were actually killed on the spot just like that. Chapter 1573. He Tian displayed a great divine ability and killed 7 of the 9 powerful warriors who came to attack him on the spot. He chased away 2 almighty emperors. His power was so great that it could shock the world. The 2 almighty emperors might have escaped, but who was He Tian? He would not let those 2 people go. He wanted to know who was behind all of this. Hence, He Tian also left Shaman City and followed behind the 2 almighty emperors without anyone noticing. They came to a place filled with spiritual aura. This place was different from the others. There was a dragon vein under the ground and the aura of the earth rose. It was a rare land for dragons to hide in. This surprised He Tian. He did not expect to see such a place right after he entered Middle-earth. There must be a powerful force of power in this place. It was definitely not a place without a master. When the 2 almighty emperors were about to enter the land of hidden dragons, He Tian knew that if he did not attack now, he would not have the chance to do so. However, just as He Tian was about to attack, a person suddenly walked in front of the 2 almighty emperors. He only saw a flash and the heads of the 2 almighty emperors flew into the air. What? He Tian was shocked. This person was too terrifying. He killed 2 almighty emperors with just one move. Those were not ordinary almighty emperors, they were almighty emperors. Only powerful warriors who were above the 5th heaven of almighty emperors had the right to be called almighty emperors. The 5th heaven of almighty emperors was a dividing line. The 2 people who lost their heads rolled on the ground. The blood of the almighty dyed the ground red. It was the blood of an almighty and contained a large amount of spiritual essence. However, that person just let the spiritual essence flow out and did not even spare a glance at it. Grand Elder Jiyu. When He Tian saw that person's face clearly, he was shocked again. The person who killed the 2 almighty emperors was Jiyu Fei, the person he was looking for. Come out. After Jiyu Fei killed the 2 almighty emperors, he glanced at the place where He Tian was. He had already sensed He Tian's presence. Boss is mighty. He Tian walked out of his hiding place with some embarrassment. In front of Jiyu Fei, he knew that it was impossible for him to hide and not be discovered by Jiyu Fei. As the 2 of them walked together, He Tian finally understood why Jiyu Fei was here. Someone had made use of the hidden dragon ground to set up a killing trap and lured Jiyu Fei in. However, Jiyu Fei had directly displayed his unparalleled combat strength and fought his way out of the hidden dragon killing trap. Using the power of the world here to set up a killing trap. He Tian was extremely shocked. Those who secretly wanted to plot against Jiyu Fei were really generous. It should be known that in the human realm, a place that contained a dragon vein under the ground was very rare. However, the hidden dragon ground here was not the same as the hidden dragon ground in the past. This hidden dragon ground had just formed, and a small dragon vein had been born under the ground. Jiyu Fei did not destroy this hidden dragon ground. On that day, someone brought a corner of a bloody robe, which shocked Jiyu Fei greatly. Because Jiyu Fei recognized that corner of the bloody robe, it was Zhao Ziru's robe. When the Taishan sect suffered a great calamity, the fate of a group of people was unknown, and they disappeared. This time, when Jiyu Fei returned to the human realm, his biggest wish was to find the people of the past. As soon as he appeared in the Sorcerer Land, someone brought Zhao Ziru's bloody robe, which really shocked him to the extreme. Zhao Ziru was a name that had been sealed in his heart for 100 years. The beautiful figure of the past gradually became clear in his heart. Without hesitation, Jiyu Fei left the Sorcerer City. This matter concerned Zhao Ziru's life and death, and it was difficult for him to remain calm. However, he also knew that someone must have wanted to lure him away. Although he knew that those people were up to no good, Jiyu Fei still went. However, Jiyu Fei still had a backup plan. Even if someone came to attack the Jiyu family after he left, the Jiyu family still had a way to protect themselves. However, the appearance of He Tian made Jiyu Fei's backup plan useless. Why did someone want to attack the Jiyu family of the Sorcerer Land? This was what Jiyu Fei wanted to know. After all, he had taken in Jiyu Zhong to pass on the bloodline of the martial ancestor. If you dare to touch my disciple, then you must pay the price. After Jiyu Fei talked with He Tian for a while, he and He Tian went back into the land of Hidden Dragon. They wanted to find some clues. The people who attacked in the dark were very mysterious. They only used a weak cultivator to lure Jiyu Fei here, and then someone else secretly killed him. This despicable act completely angered Jiyu Fei. The land of Hidden Dragon, what a pity. As He Tian walked in, he kept shaking his head. The essence of the land of Hidden Dragon had leaked out and was lured out by someone. The dragon aura under the ground was almost useless. Some of the undulating mountain ranges nearby had already been completely destroyed. This was Jiyu Fei's masterpiece. This was a very dangerous trap, and he had no choice but to break it. The terrain of the land was destroyed. It was difficult to gather spiritual aura from all directions. Even the spiritual aura that had already gathered could no longer be locked. Once the dragon aura under the ground disappeared, this spiritual land would completely lose its spiritual aura, and the area around it would become a barren land. Nothing was left behind in this trap. The rune had collapsed, and nothing could be seen. The people in the dark were very careful and did not leave any loopholes behind. Jiyu Fei and He Tian were the last to leave this area and return to the Shaman City. With their current level of cultivation, it would only take them less than an hour to return to the Shaman land from the middle of the plains. When night fell, they appeared in the Shaman City. Once Jiyu Fei returned to the Shaman City, he immediately pulled Jiyu Zhong into the secret chamber and branded the second half of the martial scripture into Jiyu Zhong's heart. In the past, Jiyu Fei had only given the first half of the martial scripture to Jiyu Zhong. Now, he also gave the second half of the martial scripture to Jiyu Zhong, merging the martial scripture into one. Jiyu Zhong had obtained the complete legacy of the martial arts. At that moment, he could be considered as the true successor of the martial arts. While Jiyu Fei was giving the martial scripture to Jiyu Zhong, He Tian was flying around to observe the situation in the world. He wanted to know why those people were so determined to obtain Shaman City. He Tian became more and more shocked. Shaman City was incredible. It seemed to be the eye of a rune that was set up with 100,000 lees of Shaman land, and the mountain ridges were like rune patterns. This sort of spending was too terrifying. It was practically going against the will of the heavens, and they did it without fear. Besides, this was a trap that had been set up since ancient times, and it was targeted at the Buddhists of Western Earth. They've been preparing for this for countless years, and now they're going to take action. He Tian stood in the sky above Shaman City, and a brilliant light would occasionally shine in his eyes. He knew that unless the Jiyu family moved away, or else, That force of power in the dark would definitely not let the matter rest. The ancient legacy. Interesting. He Tian smiled. Chapter 1574. Please remember the domain name of this site. Or here, a mysterious ancient inheritance had set its eyes on the Gu family. This was definitely a disaster for the Gu family. Such an inheritance had existed for countless years and possessed a deep foundation that no one else could compare to. No one knew the details of this mysterious inheritance, but the power it displayed made Gu Fei and He Tian somewhat afraid. The experts under the Eastern Emu ancestors' tutelage were all under the control of the opponent. Gu Fei had killed the Emu ancestor and formed a grudge with the Eastern demon ancestor. However, Gu Fei acted according to his heart. Whether it was the Eastern Emu ancestor or the Western Buddha, as long as they dared to provoke him, he would blow them up with a single punch. This time, Gu Fei was not interested in the spoils of war. Only the ebony sword was slightly better. Even the red divine spear was not as good as the ebony sword. The ebony sword was a quasi-sacred weapon suitable for people who cultivated in the wood element. Gu Fei learned about the current situation in the human world from Jiu Zhong. In the past 100 years, the forces of the ancient desolation had returned, and the major regions of the human world had ushered in a period of prosperity. A great era had arrived, and all kinds of experts had risen rapidly, their names shaking the human world. In the east, an invincible expert of the demon clan had appeared. He was called the Demon Ancestor. Some people said that he was a great demon cultivated from an ancient divine tree. The Emu Ancestor was an existence among the demon clan that could contend with the demon lord Huanglong. Two forces had appeared among the demon clan, and there were signs of a split. The water in the human world was very deep, and even Gu Fei's heart palpitated. Moreover, in this great era, all the big figures and old antiques would jump out to fight for the luck of this era. Such a great world was filled with challenges. Just thinking about it caused Gu Fei's blood to boil. He was a martialist, a natural-born fighter. The east of the human world was originally the territory of the Taishen sect, but the place where the Taishen sect was originally located had now turned into a terrifying devil's den. With the devil's den as the center, the area with a radius of 100,000 miles had already become a devil's den. Devil chi lingered there, and an indestructible demonic nature enveloped the entire area. Anyone who entered the devil's den would be in danger of being demonized. In the east, there were still some matters that required Gu Fei's attention. Gu Fei wanted to leave, but He Tian came back and told him a few things, making it temporarily impossible for him to leave. There was actually an ancient inheritance that had its eyes on the Gu clan. This was a very serious matter. If he left, the mysterious ancient inheritance would immediately arrive. At that time, the entire Gu clan would be annihilated. What should we do? In the city lord's mansion, both Gu Fei and He Tian felt troubled. There were so many ancient inheritances, but no one knew which one it was, unless the other party jumped out. Jiu Zhong suggested that the Gu family move away. However, both Gu Fei and He Tian were somewhat displeased. Their own disciples were actually being forced to move their entire family. This was not something to be proud of. It had to be said that Jianwu City was very important to that mysterious ancient inheritance. Just as the moon was in the middle of the sky, a figure stepped on the moon and approached from afar. He's here again. In the city lord's mansion, two rays of light shot out from Gu Fei's eyes. He stood up from his seat and emitted a battle intent. Finally, a decent opponent has arrived. He Tian also waved the 5 elements fan and stood up. The person from afar had already arrived outside the ancient city, standing in the air above the city gate. He did not barge in. Pass down the sacred emperor's order. You all are to leave the divine city. Everything that happened in the past will be forgotten. The person transmitted his voice into the ancient city. Everyone in the city could clearly hear this voice. It was not loud, but it spread throughout the entire region. What a big tone, sacred emperor. A sneer rang out from the ancient city, and a figure walked out from the city. It was a young cultivator waving the 5 elements fan. This young cultivator was very handsome, and he wore the Yuhua immortal robe, which was rarely seen in the mortal world. This young cultivator was He Tian. The person standing in the air in front of the city gate was also a young cultivator. However, this person's blood and qi were incomparably vigorous. An old monster. He Tian glanced at the person and said disdainfully, "What did you say?" The young cultivator's thick eyebrows immediately stood up. His eyes flashed with an ominous glint, and the blood and qi he exuded became even more vigorous. "If you want to live, then hurry up and scram. Then call that sacred emperor over and let me beat him up to vent my anger." He Tian swore. "You! How dare you?" The young cultivator was very angry. This guy in front of him dared to disrespect the sacred emperor. He deserved to die, and his entire family should be executed. Buzz! A saber rushed out from the young cultivator's body and was held in his hand. It was a bronze saber with copper stains on it. Clearly, it was an ancient item. "Aren't you ashamed to take out this kind of scrap metal?" He Tian's disdain increased, as if he didn't care about the young cultivator at all. However, he was secretly on guard. The bronze saber in the young cultivator's hand was not ordinary. "Chimph, die!" There was nothing more to say. The young cultivator also knew that he had no choice but to act. The sacred emperor had sent him here to exterminate this group of people who dared to occupy the divine city. He had an item bestowed by the sacred emperor. With that item, he was confident that he could sweep away all opponents in the world. Swish! The young cultivator slashed out with his saber. A resplendent saber light immediately rushed out from his hand, cutting through the void. Wherever the saber light passed, it left behind a pitch-black spatial crack. Peak Almighty! When He Tian saw the saber coming, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. Although it was only a single saber strike, it displayed the battle power of a Peak Almighty. I will let you know what it feels like to beg for death." A cruel smile appeared on the young cultivator's face. "I'm so scared." He Tian pretended to be frightened, then fanned out one fan after another. Boom! A fire suddenly rushed out from the five-colored divine fan in his hand. In an instant, it enveloped the entire world in front of him, engulfing the Peak Almighty in a sea of fire. The air seemed to have been set ablaze. An extremely pure divine flame burned the void, causing it to collapse. It was extremely terrifying. Roar! The angry roar of the Peak Almighty came from the sea of fire. A saber light slashed out from the sea of fire, still falling towards He Tian's head. Swish! He Tian soared into the sky, dodging the saber. He fanned the divine fire fan in his hand repeatedly. A terrifying fire essence erupted from the divine fire fan, the fire illuminating the entire sky. Layers of fire enveloped the Peak Almighty and burned him. "I'm so angry." A furious roar came from the sea of fire. Then, a terrifying saber light suddenly appeared from the sea of fire and swept out in all directions. Under the saber light, the layers of fire were directly extinguished by the saber chi. The Peak Almighty rushed out of the sea of fire, his whole body smoking, his beard and hair burned, his clothes tattered, as if he had crawled out of a rubbish dump, his face black. "Haha, where did this charcoal head come from?" Seeing the sorry state of this Peak Almighty, He Tian immediately laughed. For the latest and fastest chapters, please log in. Reading is a pleasure, I suggest you collect it. Chapter 1575. Welcome, everyone. Roar. The pinnacle mighty figure was enraged after being burned by He Tian. Two beams of divine light shot out from his pitch-black face. If looks could kill, He Tian would have died many times over. "I'm going to tear you into pieces and suppress your soul in purgatory for 10,000 years. The wretched pinnacle mighty figure gritted his teeth. He wanted nothing more than to tear He Tian into pieces. Buzz! The ancient bronze saber in his hand vibrated, and ancient patterns began to appear on the bronze-stained saber. Those patterns seemed to be formed naturally and interweaved with a Tao rhythm. Sage artifact. The extraordinariness of the ancient bronze saber made He Tian's heart tremble. Swoosh! The pinnacle mighty figure did not hesitate to expend his yuan qi to activate the ancient saber in his hand. A saber qi that was 10 times stronger than the previous saber radiance rushed out from the ancient saber. A terrifying aura spread out from the ancient bronze saber. The void between heaven and earth was instantly torn apart by the saber radiance. A wave of sage power erupted from the saber radiance, destroying everything as it landed on He Tian's head. Swoosh! When the saber radiance landed, He Tian's body suddenly turned blurry. He left an afterimage on the spot, but his real body had already moved 100 feet away. Whoosh! He held the divine fire fan in his hand and fanned at the pinnacle mighty figure. Flaming birds rushed out of the fan and flew towards the pinnacle mighty figure. These were the shadows formed by the fire essence contained in the fan. They were the legendary three-legged golden crows that were born from the sun star. Every flaming bird contained terrifying fire elemental power. The pinnacle mighty figure's ancient saber spun, and a wave of saber chi swept out, destroying all the flaming birds that pounced towards him. Moreover, the remaining power did not diminish as it continued to slash towards He Tian. Although He Tian did not practice the 8 desolate steps, his yin-yang steps was also a technique that allowed him to display extreme speed. Every step he took was a yin and a yang. The yin and yang interchanged and changed unpredictably. With a turn of his body, he disappeared on the spot. The next moment, when he reappeared, he had already rushed into the sky and arrived above the peak almighties. Boom! The power of endless yin and yang erupted from He Tian's body. A yin-yang Dao diagram appeared behind him and the power of yin and yang turned into an ancient cauldron that pressed downwards. Rumble! The entire world was shaking. The ancient cauldron formed by the interweaving yin and yang Dao patterns was exactly the same as Jiyu Fei's mountain and river cauldron. It activated the power of the great path of yin and yang, suppressing the world in all directions. A praying mantis trying to block an arm. You don't know your place. The pinnacle almighty sneered. He raised his saber and slashed upwards. The powerful saber chi shook the heavens and the earth. It broke through the layers of yin and yang essence chi and slashed at the yin and yang cauldron that was pressing down. Boom! Without any suspense, the yin and yang cauldron was smashed by the saber. The yin and yang Dao patterns dissipated and He Tian was sent flying high into the sky by this attack. Hey! At this moment, the pinnacle almighty suddenly realized that after He Tian flew high into the sky, he had actually disappeared. This surprised him. How is this possible? The bright moon was in the sky. There wasn't even a cloud in the sky. It was empty. He Tian had really suddenly disappeared. This made the pinnacle almighty feel uneasy. I want you to have nowhere to hide. The pinnacle almighty roared angrily. A divine light rushed out from between his eyebrows. A divine eye appeared there and emitted a strange wave. It was a divine eye that seemed to be able to see through the 3 realms and 6 paths. There were Dao patterns interweaving inside it. It scanned in all directions, trying to find He Tian. Bang! At this moment, a fist suddenly appeared behind the pinnacle almighty. It hit the back of his head and almost exploded his head. The pinnacle almighty was sent flying. Your head is really hard. A voice sounded in the void. He Tian's figure seemed to directly walk out of the void. He swung his fist as if he was in great pain. Ah! I'm going to kill you. The pinnacle almighty was ashamed and furious. He was almost angered to death. His opponent was humiliating him. He didn't take him seriously at all. His methods were despicable and shameless. Can you kill me? He Tian said disdainfully. The pinnacle almighty's anger burned the 9 heavens. He stabilized his body and felt a wave of dizziness. His head was in so much pain that it felt like it was going to split open. Even his soul was shaken. I'll fight it out with you. The pinnacle almighty was furious. He patted the top of his head and a divine light rushed out. Within the divine light, a divine picture rose up and emitted a pitilessly powerful and terrifying aura. This is, He Tian's expression became solemn. The divine picture rose into the sky and instantly enveloped the entire world. A terrifying wave that could shock the heavens spread out from the divine picture. The power of a great saint. In the sky above the ancient city, Jiyu Fei was also shocked when he saw this scene. He didn't expect those people to even bring such a sacred object refined by a great saint. The surging sacred power seemed to crush the world. Countless Tao patterns appeared on the divine picture and intertwined. The sacred power was vast and mighty, and all the creatures in the entire sorcerer land trembled. Die. The pinnacle almighty went crazy. He activated this sacred object refined by a great saint at all costs. The divine picture sealed the world and blocked all escape routes. This, Mahakala was astonished. He had never imagined that the other party would actually have a sacred artifact that had been refined by a great saint. This divine diagram was incredible. If it was truly suppressed, even 10 Mahakalas would be annihilated. Swoosh! An almost transparent sword light rushed out from Haitian's body and protected him in the sword light. This was an invisible divine sword and also a holy weapon. However, the divine picture was a supreme sacred object refined by a great saint. The sacred power of a great saint was vast and boundless. It suppressed the sword chi of the invisible divine sword. Buzz! The invisible divine sword was shaking. This divine sword was actually afraid. The great saint and the saint were two different levels. The great saint was a supreme existence that was only one step away from the extreme path of supreme master. In front of a great saint, a saint was like a harmless child. How could a child fight against an adult? Boss, help! Haitian felt danger. A great pressure came down from the divine picture in the sky. He almost couldn't straighten his back. If it wasn't for the invisible divine sword protecting him, the great saint's aura that swept down from the divine picture would be enough to kill him several times over. If nothing unexpected happened, it seemed that it was only a matter of time before Haitian was suppressed. No one can save you. The pinnacle almighty roared. The humiliation that Haitian gave him could only be washed away with Haitian's blood. He was determined to suppress this abominable guy. This divine picture was a sacred object given by the Saint Emperor. This was what the pinnacle almighty relied on. With this divine picture, even if his opponent was a half-saint, he could suppress him. Chapter 1576. Welcome to Rumble. The terrifying power of the great saint level was vast and mighty. A divine map that sealed the heavens and the earth descended from the sky, crushing the void of the world. It was pitilessly terrifying. Reading on the internet, boss, if you don't act now, I'm going to die again. Haitian sensed extreme danger. The power of a great saint could definitely threaten his life. Even if he had a saint weapon to protect himself, it would be difficult for him to escape death. No one can save you. The peak expert roared. He had been continuously humiliated by Haitian and was close to going crazy. He activated the divine diagram without any regard for the price, wanting to suppress Haitian. Buzz! The formless divine sword trembled, releasing a wave of saint-tier sword chi to resist the terrifying power descending from the sky, temporarily protecting Haitian. Really? Just as the divine diagram was about to completely suppress them, an emotionless voice suddenly rang out from the sky above the ancient city. A shocking battle intent descended. Even the divine diagram of the great sage could not block this battle intent. What? Although the peak almighty was on the verge of going crazy, the battle intent shocked him because he knew how terrifying this god diagram was. This was a complete supreme holy artifact. It was not something that those incomplete holy artifacts could compare to. He had once seen their Saint Emperor use this divine diagram to suppress a monstrously terrifying demon. Swoosh! Just as the pinnacle almighties were bewildered, a sword light suddenly slashed out from the ancient city. The sword light wasn't very powerful, but it emitted an extremely dangerous aura. The peak expert's heart trembled. He felt uneasy. Roar! He roared angrily, and his entire body emitted brilliant divine light. Divine patterns of the Great Path circled around him, condensing the power of the Great Path. Vast power poured into the diagram in the sky. At this moment, the diagram displayed an unprecedentedly powerful aura. Countless great saint-class Tao patterns appeared on the divine diagram, and Tao patterns were constantly being activated. The divine diagram emitted horrifying energy waves. However, the powerful force could not stop that sword light. That sword light seemed to be invincible. It directly broke through the seal of the great saint-level power, and a corner of the divine diagram was cut by the sword light. How is this possible? The pinnacle mighty figure couldn't believe what he was seeing. This was a complete great sage level relic, but a corner of it was actually broken. Countless great sage Dao patterns were collapsing. In front of this sword light, everything seemed to become weak. Wherever the sword light passed, nothing could stop it. When the divine diagram was damaged, the power radiating from it immediately weakened by more than half. Kill. He Tian let out a loud roar. He used all his strength to control the invisible godly sword and slashed upwards. A nearly transparent sword light soared into the sky and ruthlessly slashed at the godly diagram. Boom! The heavens and the earth shook. The divine painting blocked He Tian's sword, and He Tian took advantage of this opportunity to rush out from under the divine painting, escaping from danger. Swoosh! At this moment, a figure walked out from the ancient city. With just one step, that person rushed under the divine painting and caught the sword light in his hand. Buzz! A sword chime sounded, and a terrifying sword aura wave emanated from the godly sword in that person's hand. Even the power of a great sage level could not suppress this sword aura. What is this? The pinnacle mighty figure was shocked to the extreme. The godly sword in this person's hand could actually break through the seal of the great sage level power. This was too unbelievable. Could it be a divine weapon of the great path? Swoosh! That person attacked again. There was no divine power of the great path. It was just a simple sword, but it broke through the layers of seal power and directly pierced through the divine painting in the sky. The divine painting was pierced, and that pinnacle mighty figure suffered a great impact. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body immediately became exhausted. Ji Fei made a strong move. With just one sword, he destroyed the complete divine painting of the great sage. Under the blade of the purple gold divine sword, only another divine weapon of the great path could contend against it. Although the divine painting of the great sage was powerful, how could it compare to the divine sword of the great path? After the divine painting was pierced by the sword light, it rapidly shrank. The terrifying aura of the great sage level retreated like the tide. In the end, the divine painting turned into the size of a palm and floated down from the sky. I want this thing. At this moment, He Tian jumped out from nowhere and snatched the palm-sized divine painting in his hand. No. The pinnacle mighty figure could not accept this reality. One should know that this was a supreme holy item bestowed by the Saint Emperor. How could it be destroyed in his hands? Even if he could escape, he would definitely end up in a miserable state. Thinking of the Saint Emperor's methods of punishing sinners, the pinnacle mighty figure could not help but shiver. No wonder the half-sage Qing could not take down this ancient city the last time. It seems like we have seriously underestimated this guy called Ji Fei. He wanted to snatch the divine painting back, but there was already a killer staring at him from below. You can go and die now. Ji Fei shouted and directly rushed up to the sky with his sword. He was filled with murderous intent towards the pinnacle mighty figure in the sky. A dangerous aura had already enveloped the pinnacle mighty figure. The pinnacle mighty figure turned around and left. He could not be bothered to snatch the divine painting anymore. However, he had once again underestimated Ji Fei's speed. He did not know that Ji Fei possessed the fastest speed in the world. Just as he rushed out thousands of feet away, Ji Fei had already caught up with him. Swoosh! A purple gold sword light rushed out from Ji Fei's hand and rushed towards the pinnacle mighty figure. No. The pinnacle mighty figure was scared out of his wits. He ran for his life. However, no matter how fast he was definitely not faster than Ji Fei. The purple gold sword light swept towards him from behind. The pinnacle mighty figure only felt his body turn cold for a moment. Then, he could no longer feel anything. His physical body and primordial spirit were instantly destroyed by the purple gold sword light. Just as Ji Fei killed the pinnacle mighty figure, a figure sitting on a mountain in a celestial spirit land in Central Plains suddenly opened his eyes. Who is it? Who dares to destroy my divine painting? There seemed to be stars floating in that person's eyes. It was as if the universe was evolving in his eyes. His entire person exuded a unique presence, as if he was a supreme god looking down on all things in the world. This was a peerless and powerful existence. After Ji Yufei killed the pinnacle mighty figure, he returned to Shaman City. Things had become even more serious. The mysterious ancient legacy seemed to want to obtain Shaman City at all costs. This was not a good thing. This time, the other party had even used a great saint-level divine painting. No one knew what kind of even more terrifying and powerful methods they would use next time. Chapter 1577. Please remember the domain name. Or here Ji Yufei had destroyed the great sage divine diagram and killed that expert. He knew that the other party would make a move soon. One must know that a complete great sage divine diagram was incomparably precious. The great sage divine diagram was pierced by the violet gold godly sword, and the great sage Dao pattern on it was almost destroyed by Ji Yufei. However, the remnant Dao pattern could still gather the power of the great Dao. This divine diagram with a hole in it was taken away by He Tian. Although it was a broken divine diagram, under He Tian's practice, it could still display the power of a saint. The night passed peacefully. Inside Yanwu City, it was very quiet. The residents of the city had long fled, leaving only the Jiyu clan in the huge ancient city. The Jiyu clan had quite a number of people. After 100 years of recuperation, the Jiyu clan had grown to nearly 1,000 people. However, almost all of the experts of the previous generation of the Jiyu clan had fallen. The remaining people were all young cultivators, and their cultivation levels were not high. As for the 10 disciples that Jiyu Zhong had accepted, they were all killed in this battle. To Jiyu Zhong, this was undoubtedly a huge blow. One must know that he had spent a lot of effort on these 10 disciples. Almost 100 years of hard work had been wasted in a day. This was something that no one could accept. The sun rose from the east. The sun emitted a strong yang energy, dispersing the mist that shrouded the heaven and earth. The area around Yanwu City was frighteningly quiet. In this morning, not even the chirping of a bird could be heard, not to mention the roars of beasts that used to ring out from the forest. Rumble, in this morning, war chariots came from afar. Ferocious beasts roared, and an extremely horrifying aura spread across the heaven and earth. Flags fluttered in the wind, and war drums thundered. No one would have thought that the other party would arrive so quickly, and with such great momentum. It was like the legendary heavenly army of the heavenly court. Roar. The terrifying roar of the beasts shook the surroundings. Waves of powerful aura surged. In the sky above Yanwu City, countless figures appeared. All the members of the Jiyu clan in Yanwu City were extremely shocked. Boom! At this moment, a crack suddenly appeared in the sky above Mega's city, and a shocking aura of death rushed out from the broken void. Roar! A terrifying demonic howl came from the gap in the void, as if a peerless death god was awakening. Groups of undead soldiers covered in death chi walked out of the shattered void, led by 3 peerless undead emperors. In an instant, the entire Mega city was enveloped by a terrifying power of death. This is undead creatures. What happened? The appearance of the undead creatures shocked the attacking soldiers. The aura of death filled the air. At this moment, Jiwu City had turned into a dead city. The Saint Emperor has arrived. Everyone in the city, come out and die. A loud voice resounded throughout the world. The person who spoke had a pitilessly powerful cultivation base. He was probably a half-step saint. Mph, it's better for your Saint Emperor to enter the city and die. A sneer came from the city. Audacious. Damn it. Hearing this, countless soldiers became extremely agitated. Some of the generals immediately shouted. Someone actually dared to be presumptuous in front of their Saint Emperor. They must be tired of living. What a grand display. Even the Heaven Emperor of the past was nothing more than this. Another voice resounded in the city, full of disdain. In the ancient city, Ji Yufei, He Tian, and Jiyu Zhong soared into the sky and stood in the sky above the ancient city. Behind them were groups of undead creatures. This was a force that Ji Yufei had deliberately cultivated. At this moment, he only used this force. In fact, he wanted to use those fellows outside the city to train his soldiers. In the past, Ji Yufei subdued the undead clan in the Hell Dao. After so many years, the undead clan had been left in the inner world by Ji Yufei. These undead clan had been bored to death and could not wait to come out and get some fresh air. The Emperor of the Netherworld, the Corpse Emperor, and the Undead Emperor stood behind Gu Fei. As long as Gu Fei gave the order, they would rush out of the city. The three undead emperors were pitilessly powerful. Their strength was not weaker than Gu Zhong's. They were existences that were about to reach the almighty realm. They were far more powerful and terrifying than ordinary emperors. The ghostly figures, evil corpses, and skeletons all had the cultivation base of immortals. Among them, there was no lack of ninth heaven immortals. The force in Gu Fei's hands was comparable to the legendary heavenly soldiers of the heavenly court. It was not something that the miscellaneous troops outside the ancient city could compare to. The appearance of such a force caused the soldiers outside the city to be astonished. Kill. There was nothing more to say. Both sides had already formed an irreconcilable enmity. Gu Zhong's 10 disciples couldn't die in vain, and so could the Gu family members. Rumble, one after another, powerful figures rushed out of the ancient city. The whole world shook, and a monstrous death chi swept across the sky and the earth. In the ancient city, the clansmen of the Gu family had already been taken into Gu Fei's inner world. Fight. Outside the ancient city, battle flags fluttered in the wind. Groups of soldiers emitted a shocking battle intent as they advanced forward. These soldiers were also extremely powerful, because even the weakest of them could fly in the air. Only cultivators of the mortal realm of the royal void realm could soar into the sky and roam the world. It was as if 100,000 heavenly soldiers were charging. Their murderous aura changed the color of heaven and earth. The roar of the ancient beasts caused visible ripples in the void. Boom! With a huge tremor, both sides collided. Gu Fei's army of death pierced into the heavenly soldiers' battle formation like a divine sword. Countless heavenly soldiers were torn to pieces in an instant. The death chi devoured their lives. Even the immortal-level soldiers couldn't resist and were directly crushed by the army of death. Someone discovered that the undead soldiers' bodies were flashing with formation patterns. Their life force was devoured by the death chi and turned into the power of the undead soldiers. Under this charge, thousands of heavenly soldiers fell in an instant. Their flesh and bones splattered in all directions. The blood didn't fall from the sky, but was absorbed by the undead soldiers. What? Someone saw the seriousness of the problem. These undead soldiers could devour the life force of heavenly soldiers to increase their fighting strength. Such a group of undead soldiers would become stronger the more they fought. Countless undead soldiers formed a battle formation. Countless formation patterns appeared on their bodies. A terrifying killing formation loomed between the heaven and earth. The killing formation emitted a peerless and terrifying aura. It was like an incomparably huge wheel of destruction. Wherever it passed, flesh and blood splattered and countless heavenly soldiers were torn to pieces. The smell of blood filled every inch of the void, causing people's scalps to go numb. For the latest and fastest chapters, please log in. It's a pleasure to read. I suggest you collect it. Chapter 1578. Please remember the domain name. Or at the Saint Emperor's army had arrived, swearing to take over Jiwu City. It was like 100,000 celestial soldiers bearing down on the border, filling the entire area with a terrifying murderous aura. The flowers and trees in the surrounding area were all withering, the originally green leaves quickly turning yellow and falling from the trees. In the sky, a terrifying battle was unfolding. A formation diagram was faintly discernible in the sky, and a monstrous aura of death filled the air. Even the 100,000 celestial soldiers could not suppress it. How is this possible? All the generals were dumbfounded. They had led thousands of soldiers and fought for the Saint Emperor. There was nothing they had not seen before. But today, everything was beyond their imagination. Someone was actually using undead creatures to set up a formation. Every undead creature's body was emitting formation patterns, and these formation patterns were gradually becoming brighter and brighter. Within the formation, Hei Tian sat cross-legged on a formation platform, his entire body glowing with divine light, like a supreme immortal descending from the 9 heavens. He was the one controlling this formation, killing in all directions. Below the formation platform, there was a broken divine diagram floating. This was the diagram that He Tian had taken away after Ji Yufei had killed the peak expert last night. More than half of the Dao patterns on the Great Sage's divine diagram had been destroyed by the violet gold godly sword. Although there were still many Dao patterns that were intact, the divine diagram's power had been greatly reduced. This divine diagram could only be considered a broken divine artifact, and was no longer the complete divine diagram of the Great Sage. He Tian had used this divine diagram to set up a killing formation, using it to suppress the formation's core. This caused the killing formation to display an even more terrifying power. Rumble, the killing formation was in operation, and under He Tian's control, the three undying emperors led countless undead creatures towards the celestial soldiers. Boom! Right at this moment, a loud sound rang out. The countless celestial soldiers also started to move. Squads of people and horses moved quickly. A peerless murderous intent began to gather. These celestial soldiers also had their own battle formations, and when countless of them gathered together, they formed a peerless battle formation that could change the color of heaven and earth. Kill. The heavenly soldiers' battle formation took shape. Countless heavenly soldiers, under the leadership of their generals, began to attack He Tian's killing formation. This was a battle formation against a killing formation. Celestial soldiers continuously fell from the sky, and then their essence chi was devoured by He Tian's killing formation. The more celestial soldiers he killed, the more power He Tian's killing formation gathered. Bang! A huge seal rushed out from the celestial soldiers' battle formation, smashing towards Mahakala's killing formation. The terrifying power of a saint exploded, and the entire world seemed like it was about to be smashed into a hole. Buzz! At the same time, the map fragment floating below He Tian's formation platform was shaking, and the void was rippling. Roar! The 3,000 undying generals roared and punched upwards in unison. A monstrous force collided with the incoming seal and sent it flying thousands of feet away. Among the heavenly soldiers, a mighty general coughed up a mouthful of blood. Fight! 100,000 heavenly soldiers shouted in unison, and with their spears in hand, they pierced towards He Tian's killing formation. This was a shocking power that even a saint would have to retreat in the face of. Boom! In the earth-shattering collision, He Tian's killing formation was shaken, and the hundreds of undead creatures on the periphery were instantly turned into ashes. Damn it! Ji Yufei couldn't help but be shocked and angry when he saw this scene. The opponent's battle formation was very extraordinary, and it could actually shake He Tian's killing formation. Moreover, what made Ji Yufei unwilling to act rashly was that the Saint Emperor they were talking about had not appeared yet. The person who dared to call himself a Saint Emperor was definitely pillously powerful. Otherwise, who would dare to use this title? I want to see who dares to call himself a Saint Emperor. Ji Yufei held the violet gold divine sword in his hand as he sat cross-legged in the formation. He didn't make a move because he still couldn't sense the location of the Saint Emperor. The Saint Emperor seemed to be preparing for something, and didn't show himself. He only ordered his generals to fight with all their might. This was a shocking power that could run amok in the human realm. Unfortunately, they met Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei also had a powerful force in his hands. The undead army that came from the Hell Realm was not to be trifled with. Kill. Without any unnecessary words, He Tian controlled the killing formation, and countless undead creatures attacked at the same time. The terrifying power turned into an immortal light of death that rushed into the heavenly soldiers' battle formation. Thousands of heavenly soldiers were swept by the light of death and turned into ashes in an instant. The light of death tore open a 10,000 feet long hole in the sky. The two forces continued to fight. Countless voices screamed and people fell. The sky above Ji-Wu City turned into a terrifying battlefield. There were constantly generals using their saint weapons. Rays of saint-level divine light rushed out from the heavenly soldiers' battle formation, sweeping towards He Tian's killing formation. The Great Sage divine diagram below He Tian trembled. The Great Sage Dao pattern on it was constantly being activated, emitting resplendent divine light and gathering the power of the Great Dao. The tattered divine diagram of the Great Sage emitted the energy ripples of a saint. The divine diagram fused with the killing formation, forming an astonishing force. Under Mahakala's control, it clashed against the Heavenly Soldiers' battle formation. In terms of formations, He Tian's killing formation was filled with killing intent. With the Great Sage Divine Diagram as the core of the formation, it was much stronger and more terrifying than the Heavenly Soldiers' battle formation. However, many of the generals in the Heavenly Soldiers' battle formation had saint weapons. They used the power of the battle formation to activate the saint weapons. This was a peerless power. This was equivalent to using countless heavenly soldiers to display the greatest power of the saint weapons. From this, it could be seen that this mysterious ancient inheritance was really incredible. To be able to pass down such a battle formation, this kind of inheritance should not be unknown. However, Jiyu Zhong did not know the origin of the opponent. This seemed impossible. Although the waters of the human realm were deep, how could such a power be completely hidden without anyone knowing? One must know that Jiyu Zhong's wife was the previous generation's saintess of the Yarotai ancient Holy Land. With the power of the Yarotai ancient Holy Land, how could they not find some clues? Since this so-called Saint Emperor is not willing to jump out, then I will force him out. 2 rays of light shot out from Jiyu Fei's eyes. He stood up from the formation and directly waved the purple-gold divine sword, slashing towards the outside of the formation. Swoosh! A ray of purple-gold divine sword light rushed out from his hand, splitting the void between heaven and earth. It fell into the Heavenly Soldiers' battle formation, and the figures were silently annihilated under the purple-gold divine sword light. This was a direct destruction of body and soul. It was the most thorough way of dying in the world. Even the imprint of life had been destroyed. Even ghosts could not be alive anymore. With just one sword, he directly killed over 1,000 heavenly soldiers. This caused everyone to be dumbfounded. What kind of sword light was this? It could actually break through the battle formation and kill the heavenly soldiers. For the latest and fastest chapters, please log in. Reading is a pleasure. I recommend you to bookmark it. Chapter 1579. Welcome, everyone. Jiyu Fei made his move. Even though the purple-gold godly sword had yet to awaken, the unparalleled sword radiance emitted from the sword displayed an invincible and terrifying might. The sword radiance silently slashed into the battle matrix outside the killing matrix. Thousands of soldiers were instantly turned into ashes, completely destroyed in body and soul. Nothing was left behind. What kind of sword is this? All the generals were shocked. The power displayed by the sword in Jiyu Fei's hand was too terrifying. One sword strike was able to destroy thousands of soldiers. Even a saint would not be able to do such a thing. It should be known that the battle matrix formed by countless soldiers was filled with murderous intent. The terrifying power of a saint was condensed, and it could compete with the killing matrix formed by He Tian. This mysterious ancient inheritance was very powerful. The 100,000 celestial soldiers were mobilized. This kind of momentum was not something an ordinary force could achieve. Even the ancient antiquity forces would not be able to do so. Jiyu Fei's attack really shocked the other party. Boom! A powerful aura suddenly erupted from the 100,000 celestial soldiers. Beams of divine light shot up into the sky, piercing through the void. The terrifying might shocked the heavens. This was a power that could make all living beings tremble. Great saint weapon? Only a great saint weapon could produce such a level of power. A peerless figure was using a great saint weapon. The power of a great saint could shake the heavens and the earth. Swoosh! A divine arrow was shot out from the celestial soldier's battle matrix. The divine arrow immediately turned into a divine phoenix. It emitted monstrous divine fire, illuminating the entire heaven and earth. The divine phoenix directly rushed towards where Jiyu Fei was. In just an instant, it had already pounced in front of Jiyu Fei. A terrifying wave of heat spread out, causing Jiyu Fei to feel as though all the blood in his body had evaporated. He felt his mouth go dry. This is, He Tian, who was sitting cross-legged in the killing matrix, was shocked. This arrow was incredible. It had activated the power of the divine fire in the heavens. This divine fire seemed to be the Nanming Li fire. Could it be the legendary Nanming Li fire bow? Ji Fei stared at the divine phoenix that was flying towards him, and his eyes narrowed involuntarily. The great saint energy contained within this arrow was not something that he could resist. Although it was difficult for him to resist this power, the extreme path sacred weapon in his hand could. Roar! Ji Fei bellowed, and a huge cauldron emerged from his body, enveloping him within. An extremely ancient aura appeared in the world. This aura seemed to originate from the primordial chaos, causing one's heart to palpitate. Mountain and river cauldron, how is this possible? A voice rang out in the heavenly soldier's battle formation. The voice was filled with disbelief. The person in the battle formation recognized the illusory cauldron around Ji Fei. Boom! At this moment, the divine phoenix transformed by the divine arrow had already hit the ancient cauldron around Ji Fei. The power of the great saint level suddenly erupted. Countless undead soldiers around Ji Fei were shaken off. Even with the protection of the killing matrix, more than half of the undead soldiers turned into flying ashes on the way to the sky. Even He Tian's killing matrix could not resist the power of the great saint level. Preposterous! He Tian was furious. He sat cross-legged on the matrix platform and constantly took out rare divine materials from his body and threw them into the various matrix eyes of the killing matrix. Rumble! The power of the entire killing matrix was increasing rapidly. Countless undead soldiers rushed out of the bright matrix patterns. The matrix patterns were branded into the void, triggering the killing catastrophe of heavens. The battle cries were earth-shattering. He Tian controlled the peerless killing matrix and continuously attacked the battle formation formed by the 100,000 heavenly soldiers. The place where the killing matrix and the battle formation met had turned into chaos. The corpses of the heavenly soldiers constantly fell from the sky. The essence of heaven and earth frantically gathered towards He Tian's killing matrix. The matrix patterns seemed to have turned into a substance. After the undead soldiers were blessed by the power of the killing matrix, all of them were extremely fierce. The aura of death was terrifying. The undead soldiers rushed into the heavenly soldiers' battle formation and fought with the heavenly soldiers. Whoosh! The undying emperor took the lead and chopped a general into two with a single slash. The bone blade instantly devoured the general's essence, energy, and spirit. The netherworld emperor turned into thousands of ghost shadows. These ghost shadows directly pounced on the bodies of the heavenly soldiers. The eyes of the heavenly soldiers suddenly turned blood red. Then, they turned around and pounced on their companions behind them. This was the netherworld emperor's killing technique, ghost possession. The netherworld emperor cultivated the netherworld ghost path. Only he could use this killing technique to control the body of others to fight. The evil corpse emperor's body was extremely strong. He was like a tiger in a flock of sheep. His hands clawed wildly and hundreds of heavenly soldiers were directly torn apart. The essence of those heavenly soldiers were all devoured by the evil corpse emperor. Ha ha! Awesome! The evil corpse emperor bathed in blood and attacked crazily. His hands constantly tore apart the heavenly soldiers and devoured their spirit. This was the horror of the undead creatures. They could devour life essence to strengthen themselves. You pieces of trash that haven't died yet, go to hell. A roar was heard. An iron tower-like general, shining with divine light, rushed towards the evil corpse emperor with a pair of black iron axes in his hands. This was a powerful general. Every step he took in the void caused the entire void to tremble. A powerful murderous aura was emitted from this big man. Eat my axe. The iron tower-like general chopped his axe down on the evil corpse emperor. The black iron axe turned into a black light and set off a gust of wind, creating a spatial crack in the void. Come at me, the evil corpse emperor shouted. Corpse chi surged all over his body. He was like a peerless demon. His eyes emitted blood-red evil light. He did not retreat, but directly punched upwards. Clang! The sound of metal colliding was heard. The evil corpse emperor's fist collided with the black iron tower's divine axe. The evil corpse emperor actually resisted the axe with his fist. What? The black iron tower was shocked. This guy's fist was actually harder than divine iron. As the divine axe chopped down, the sound of metal rang out. The evil corpse emperor sneered. An even more powerful force erupted from his fist against the divine axe. The divine axe in the Black Iron Tower's hand was immediately shaken away. Not good. Tai was also a battle-hardened general. The moment the divine axe was sent flying, he knew it was bad. He didn't even think before retreating. However, it was already too late. The evil corpse emperor rushed forward and stretched out his left hand. He directly broke through the Black Iron Tower's divine armor and stabbed into the Black Iron Tower's chest. Roar. The Black Iron Tower let out an earth-shattering roar. The divine axe in his other hand desperately chopped down at the evil corpse emperor. At the same time, the Black Iron Tower's body erupted with a terrifying wave of power. An extremely ferocious power crazily expanded from his body. Self-destruct. The evil corpse emperor was shocked. He wanted to retreat, but the Black Iron Tower's hand had already firmly grasped the hand that was stabbed into the Black Iron Tower's chest. Boom! With a loud bang, the Black Iron Tower's body exploded due to the destructive energy that erupted from his body. The terrifying energy swept across all directions. This was the self-destruction of an immortal emperor. The celestial soldiers and undead soldiers that were fighting in the surroundings were blown away by the force. This Black Iron Tower was incomparably ferocious. He actually wanted to self-destruct to kill the evil corpse emperor. The evil corpse emperor was a grand completion Deva sovereign, an existence that was only one step away from becoming a supreme expert. He had a body that was strong enough to resist divine weapons. Although the self-destruction of an immortal emperor was powerful, it couldn't kill the evil corpse emperor. Roar. Amidst the chaotic energy, the angry roar of the evil corpse emperor was heard. Although the evil corpse emperor didn't die, he still suffered a great impact. At this time, a small figure wrapped in divine light soared into the sky. It was the primordial spirit of the Black Iron Tower. An immortal emperor expert wouldn't die so easily. As long as the primordial spirit wasn't destroyed, an immortal emperor expert wouldn't die. Trying to escape. The cold voice of the evil corpse emperor was heard. Endless corpse chi condensed into a giant hand of death. It rushed up from below and grabbed the divine light of the primordial spirit. Bang! Without any hesitation, the evil corpse emperor crushed the primordial spirit. Rays of divine light rushed out from his hand and entered his body. The primordial spirit of the gigantic Black Iron Tower general was devoured by the evil corpse emperor just like that. After devouring the primordial spirit of the general, the impact of the evil corpse emperor was healed in an instant. The chi of death on his body was even stronger than before. Harvesting lives was the nature of the undead creatures, because this kind of existence needed the life force of living beings to strengthen itself. The evil corpse emperor had obtained great benefits, while the Nether Emperor and the Undead Emperor didn't lag behind. The life force of the celestial soldiers was incomparably strong, far beyond the average life force. Both the Nether Emperor and the Undead Emperor had devoured a large amount of life essence. The three emperors felt that the bottleneck of their cultivation had a sign of loosening, which surprised and delighted them. Then, they desperately harvested the life force of these celestial soldiers. The celestial soldiers' battle formation was gradually suppressed by He Tian's killing formation. Countless celestial soldiers were constantly falling. Their life force was devoured by the undead creatures, and their bodies and souls were directly destroyed. There were also countless undead creatures that were killed by the celestial soldiers, and their soul fire was completely extinguished. However, the soul power of those beheaded undead creatures would also be devoured by He Tian's killing formation and turned into the power of the killing formation. Therefore, the power of He Tian's killing formation was still gradually increasing. The power fluctuations emitted by the killing formation were already close to the level of Great Sage. Mountain and River Cauldron. I didn't expect you to have the Mountain and River Cauldron. In the battle formation, the mysterious man didn't shoot a second arrow after shooting one. With the protection of an extreme sacred weapon like the Mountain and River Cauldron, even the divine weapon of a great sage couldn't break that kind of defense. At this time, Ji Fei finally sensed the location of the pitilessly powerful mysterious man. Kill. Without any hesitation, Ji Fei used the Mountain and River Cauldron to protect himself and held the purple gold divine sword. He directly rushed out of the killing formation and killed his way into the celestial soldiers' battle formation. Chapter 1580. Please remember the domain name of this website. Gu Fei was extremely powerful. He directly rushed out of the killing matrix with his sword and attacked the pitilessly powerful and mysterious existence in the battle matrix. Buzz. Countless celestial soldiers surrounded Gu Fei. The shadow of the cauldron of mountain and river outside Gu Fei shook, and all the celestial soldiers who rushed over were sent flying. This was not the divine might of the extreme great path. It was just that Gu Fei had activated a wisp of the power of the cauldron of mountain and river. Even so, the strength of its defense was shocking. Even an arrow shot by the great Saint Divine Bow could be blocked. The attacks of these celestial soldiers were like eggs hitting a stone. They were useless, and instead, they were smashing their heads and bleeding. Gu Fei rushed into the battle matrix as if he was invincible. With a divine sword in his hand, he swept in all directions. No one was a match for him. All the divine weapons and magic treasures were destroyed under the blade of the purple-gold divine sword. No divine weapon or even divine weapon could withstand a blow from the purple-gold divine sword. Although it did not have the divine might of the extreme great path, it was still a sword of the extreme great path. Its sharpness was not comparable to that of a divine weapon. When the sword slashed out, there was nothing that could block it. "You have a death wish." A loud shout came from the depths of the battle matrix. Then, beams of divine light of the great path rushed out from the depths of the battle matrix. They intertwined in the void between heaven and earth. A torrential power surged out, as if a supreme great saint had awakened from a deep sleep. Bam! This force directly hit the faint and illusory big cauldron outside Gu Fei. The big cauldron shook, and Gu Fei was knocked thousands of feet away by this force. Gu Fei stabilized his body in the void. He was extremely shocked. The force just now was too strong. It was even stronger than the divine arrow shot by the great Saint Divine Bow. Buzz. The faint and illusory ancient cauldron outside Gu Fei's body shook. The void rippled like water, and a powerful aura spread out from the big cauldron's shadow. So what if you have the extreme Tao sacred weapon? You can't even use it. A figure walked out from the depths of the battle formation. This was a pitilessly powerful existence. No one could see his appearance clearly. There was a layer of primal chaos swirling around his body. That's right, it was chaotic energy, an ancestral energy that was only one level lower than primordial chaos energy. This person was incredible to actually possess such ancestral energy. Be careful, it's the legendary chaotic Daoist body. At this time, Hei Tian's voice suddenly rang out in Gu Fei's mind. Hei Tian was transmitting his voice to him. Hei Tian had seen through this existence's physique. In ancient times, the world of cultivation was extremely prosperous. There were many nature-defying physiques, and the chaotic Daoist physique was one of them. It was a naturally powerful physique. People with this kind of physique could cultivate chaotic force in their bodies and be intimate with primal chaos. If this kind of physique matured, it would definitely be extremely powerful. "You're the Sage Emperor." Gu Fei stared at the mysterious man, his battle intent surging. "I'm not the Sage Emperor." The mysterious man's voice was very calm, but he had a temperament that was above all living beings. He was high and mighty, as if he didn't belong to the mortal world. What? Hearing this, Gu Fei couldn't help but feel a trace of unease. This guy was so powerful, but he wasn't the so-called Sage Emperor. Then where was the real Sage Emperor? At this time, a loud noise rang out in Yanwu City. The entire city was actually shaking. Then, on the surface of the city, ancient runes began to appear. Oh no! Gu Fei's heart trembled. Fortunately, he had taken the entire Gu clan into his inner world before he attacked. Otherwise, the entire Gu clan would probably be in trouble. At this time, Yanwu City had completely changed. Divine runes of the Great Path appeared on the surface of the city. Countless rays of divine light rushed out from the ancient city. Thousands of auspicious qi and immortal clouds floated in the air. The ancient city emitted a mighty aura that shocked both sides, who were fighting involuntarily stopped and stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Jiyu Fei pointed his sword at the mysterious cultivator in front of him. He was so angry that his voice was trembling. At this time, he knew that they had fallen into the opponent's trap. No one had thought of this. It seemed that the real Sage Emperor was in charge of all this. The opponent's cultivator had already infiltrated the ancient city and activated the runes of the Great Path in the ancient city. The entire ancient city seemed to have come back to life. It was as if a huge life form had awakened from a deep sleep. Then, the entire mountain range of the Shamanland also began to shake. The dragon chi of the earth rose. The situation of the world in this barren land was changing rapidly. To change the situation of the world, if it was a natural change, the time needed would be astronomical. It would be calculated in tens of millions of years. But now, the terrain that needed tens of millions of years to form was being formed at a speed visible to the naked eye. This was a method that defied the natural order. It was stealing the creation of the world. "Boss, I'm leaving." He Tian controlled the killing formation and sent a telepathic message to Jiyu Fei. The 100,000 miles of the Shamanland was an eternal plan. It was left behind by the invincible cultivator in the ancient times. At this time, the entire 100,000 miles of the Shamanland was undergoing a shocking change. The opponent was gradually controlling the situation of the 100,000 miles of the Shamanland. Once the existence in the ancient city completely controlled the 100,000 miles of the Shamanland, it would be difficult for them to escape unscathed even if they had the divine weapon of the Great Path. Jiyu Fei was very unwilling to retreat just like this. "Eat my fist." Jiyu Fei put away the purple gold divine sword and used the yin-yang reincarnation fist with all his strength. His hands emitted endless yin-yang power. His fists instantly gathered unparalleled yin-yang true power. Bam! Jiyu Fei punched forward with his fists. Yin and yang coexisted. The two forces collided and intertwined, forming an even more powerful force. It rushed towards the mysterious man in front of him. The fist force shook the earth. Even the mysterious man was moved. Rumble! The mysterious man pushed his hands forward. Endless chaotic chi surged from his hands. His palms turned into two chaotic hands. Like two ancient divine mountains, they pushed towards Jiyu Fei's fist force. The two pitilessly powerful forces collided together. The space between the two of them was collapsing and turning into nothingness. This was a great destruction. Everything was completely destroyed. Nothing could be left behind. Jiyu Fei only felt a strong force colliding with him. He flew backward involuntarily. The mysterious man was also sent flying back into the heavenly soldier's battle matrix by Jiyu Fei's yin-yang fist force. The chaotic Tao body is indeed powerful. After colliding with the mysterious man, Jiyu Fei did not hesitate. He turned and rushed into He Tian's killing matrix. He then met up with He Tian and rushed out of the Shamanland together. The human tribe's martial body is indeed extraordinary. The mysterious man walked out of the heavenly soldier's battle matrix again. For the latest and fastest chapters, please log in. Reading is a pleasure. I suggest you keep it. Chapter 1581. Tilda. At this moment, Jiwu City was already under the control of someone. The 100,000 miles of Sorcererland had undergone earth-shattering changes. The world was changing, and the mysterious ancient inheritance was finally obtained. This ancient inheritance was extremely powerful. It had 100,000 celestial soldiers, and they set up the celestial soldiers' battle formation to obtain the Sorcererland at all costs. The ancient inheritance that had been passed down thousands of years ago was activated. Every mountain in the Sorcererland was shaking, and the ancestral veins of the earth that had been sleeping for countless years began to awaken. At this moment, the chaotic Tao body that had collided head-on with Jiyu Fei walked out of the battle formation, and from 10 miles away, he threw a punch at Jiyu Fei, who had already returned to the killing formation. There was no divine power, no magic. It was just a punch, but it directly shattered a part of the void. Such power did not seem to be inferior to Jiyu Fei's martial arts. The chaotic Tao body seemed to have unimaginable power. It was not at the same level as ordinary constitutions. It was too powerful, like an innate divine being born from the chaos. It was just a punch, but it displayed the power of opening the sky. The punch shattered the void, and it gave people an incomparably shocking feeling. It actually wanted to use its own power to shake He Tian's killing formation. However, the power gathered by He Tian's killing formation was too strong. Even though it suffered such a powerful attack, it only shook a few times, and the power was dissolved. At this moment, the earth began to spurt out a monstrous amount of essence energy. Mountains were collapsing, and then the shattered heaven and earth were reforming. The reformed heaven and earth were extremely dense, and the immortal clouds and auspicious clouds lingered. Rumble, seeing that its punch could not do anything to Ji Yufei, the chaotic Tao body directly drove the celestial soldiers' battle formation and chased after Ji Yufei and He Tian. In the sky, battle cries shook the heaven and earth, and the void was densely packed with figures. The terrifying battle formation gathered the heaven and earth spiritual chi from all directions and turned it into combat power, emitting a terrible aura that made everything in the world tremble. Divine fire emerged from the formation, surging in the chaotic void. Then, a bright beam of fire, like a crimson lightning bolt, pierced through the void, broke through the chaos, and shot out. Countless flames shot towards Ji Yufei and He Tian. It was as if the entire world had been set ablaze. With a flip of his hand, a crimson divine bow appeared in his hand. As if walking out of the void of chaos, he narked an arrow and shot it. Swish! The arrow pierced through heaven and earth, smashed through the void, and shot into He Tian's killing formation in the blink of an eye. Then, the divine arrow exploded and a ball of fire swept out in all directions, blowing up hundreds of undead soldiers. Damn it! Ji Yufei and He Tian were furious. They had already retreated, but these people still didn't let them go. They wanted to chase after them and beat them up. They couldn't take this. Roar! Ji Yufei threw his head back and roared. His long hair fluttered wildly, and his almighty martial body erupted with a terrible fluctuation that swept through the world. Divine runes of the Great Path appeared on his body. In particular, the divine rune between his eyebrows emitted a terrible divine light, as if a heavenly eye had opened, and terrifying power gathered within it. Endless blood rushed into the sky and enveloped the sky. It was the blood of an ancient dragon, vigorous to the extreme, and swept out in all directions above Ji Yufei's head. Swish! A beam of purple-gold divine light rushed out from the rune between Ji Yufei's eyebrows, displaying great power. Beams of terrifying divine light swept out in all directions, piercing through the chaotic Tao body that was chasing after them. The chaotic Daoist body seemed to have sensed great danger and dodged in an instant. The divine light swept behind him. The hundreds of heavenly soldiers behind him were swept by the divine light and immediately turned into dust. Their bodies and souls were completely destroyed. The chaotic Tao body's heart trembled. This was the divine light of destruction condensed by the power of the Great Path. If hit, even the chaotic Tao body would be seriously injured. The other heavenly soldiers and generals were all shocked to see this scene. Swish! 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 At this moment, figures rushed out from all over the Sorcererland, and a powerful aura erupted from the ancestral vein beneath the Sorcererland. That is, seeing this, Ji Yufei and He Tian could not help but be shocked. They never thought that there would be such a backup plan in the depths of the Sorcererland. Using the ancestral vein of the earth to nourish the war soldiers, this mysterious ancient method was indeed heaven-defying. The war soldiers from thousands of years ago had been nourished by the ancestral vein of the earth for countless years, and were extremely powerful. 4 figures rushed out from the endless essence chi of the earth. Ha ha, come, let's attack together, what's there to be afraid of? Ji Yufei's fighting spirit was like a rainbow. He actually rushed out of the killing formation and attacked the chaotic Tao body. With the protection of the mountain and river cauldron and the purple gold divine sword in his hand, he feared nothing. Boom! 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 At this moment, from the east, west, south, north, with Baowu City as the center, 4 loud sounds came from the ground in all 4 directions. Then, the ground in all 4 directions suddenly shattered, and 4 incomparably powerful auras emerged from the shattered ground. Countless figures walked out from the shattered ground, and an endless ancient aura filled the void between heaven and earth. This is, in the killing formation, He Tian could not help but be dumbfounded when he saw this scene. This was a war soldier from ancient times, sleeping in the ancestral vein of the earth. After Baowu City fell under the control of the mysterious Saint Emperor, these ancient war soldiers sleeping in the ancestral vein of the earth also woke up. These ancient war soldiers could not be compared to the war soldiers that had fought against He Tian's killing formation for so long. These were the real ancient war soldiers, and they were incomparably powerful. When these four groups of war soldiers appeared, their life force swept across the sky and the earth. Such a movement could not be hidden. At this moment, many forces already knew that a drastic change had occurred in the Shaman land. Especially the three dynasties of the Middle Earth. Many royal experts had already appeared outside the Shaman land with the help of the teleportation formation. At this moment, chaotic divine light rushed out from the Shaman land from time to time, but no one dared to enter. Barging into the Shaman land at this time was undoubtedly courting death. What's going on? Why is there such a huge change in the Shaman land? It's the work of that mysterious force. The heavenly soldiers and generals. What a grand show! Some of the older members of the royal family cultivated the divine eyes and saw the changes in the Shaman land. They saw He Tian controlling the killing formation and fighting against the countless heavenly soldiers and generals. In recent years, another mysterious force had appeared in the Shaman land, and it was also spying on the Middle Earth. This was noticed by the experts of the three dynasties, but no one knew what force it was. It was only today that this mysterious force finally surfaced. Chapter 1582. For figures stepped out of the void. To be able to travel and move through the void, only people with great divine power could do that. Four terrifying auras filled the world. The cultivation of these people could be said to be heaven-defying, not the slightest bit weaker than the chaotic Tao body, maybe even stronger. Rumble, Shaman City rose from the ground, emitting millions of rays of divine light. Endless auspicious signs descended from the sky, making the pitch-black ancient city look like the palace of the celestial emperor in the ninth heaven. These were the four great generals, wearing armors forged from immortal divine iron. Each of them emitted a heart-palpitating murderous aura. With one look, one could tell that these four generals were experienced generals, their hands stained with blood. The four armies were led by these four great generals. Kill. Without any hesitation, the four groups of soldiers woke up in the earth veins and rushed forward, directly attacking He Tian's killing formation. Boom! Amidst the deafening noise, He Tian's killing formation shook repeatedly. Countless undead soldiers at the edge of the killing formation turned into dust, their soul power scattered. With just one attack, He Tian's killing formation suffered a great impact. These soldiers from the ancient times emitted endless battle intent and murderous aura. They had once fought in the immemorial era. Although there weren't many of them, each group only had 500 soldiers, the battle strength they displayed was many times stronger than the 100,000 celestial soldiers. Roar! 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 The ancient soldiers roared. Although there were only 2,000 of them, they were stronger than the 100,000 celestial soldiers. 2,000 ancient soldiers emitted powerful spiritual waves, roaring towards the sky. Their voices could topple mountains and overturn seas, causing the void to tremble. The undying fighting soul was undying. Without a doubt, this fighting soul was a ruthless character that dared to fight against the heavens. Even though it had been asleep for countless years, it could still fight for its master after it woke up. Such soldiers were very terrifying. They crossed the river of history and appeared in the present world. They were nourished by the earth's ancestral veins for countless years, their strength unfathomable. Moreover, they had vigorous vitality, unlike the undead creatures under Gu Fei. Kill. Under the command of the four great generals, 2,000 soldiers once again launched an attack on He Tian's killing formation. Their terrifying power shook the heaven and earth in all directions. This kind of power was even more terrifying than a fully awakened great saint weapon. The chaotic Tao body had already retreated to the side and did not interfere. However, the chaotic Daoist body had its eyes on Gu Fei. If you want to fight, let's fight. Ji Fei had never been afraid of anyone. He protected himself with the mountain and river cauldron and charged towards the chaotic Dao body with his sword. He wanted to see what was so special about this so-called chaotic Dao body. It should be known that the chaotic Dao body was a kind of powerful physique in the world. It was not weaker than the martial body. If this person really grew up and mastered the chaotic Dao body, it would be enough to compete with the indestructible martial body. That's exactly what I was thinking. Let me experience the so-called martial body. The Dao body of chaos was also very powerful. He directly charged forward, drawing the great sage godbow in his hands and shooting out an arrow. The divine arrow condensed from boundless fire essence pierced through the void. Swoosh! Ji Fei protected himself with the mountain and river cauldron and was not afraid of the powerful aura of the great sage. He slashed out with his sword and directly destroyed the incoming divine sword. Then, he pointed his sword at the chaotic Dao body. What's the use of relying on external objects? If you have the guts, don't use weapons to fight me. The chaotic Dao body soared into the sky and flew into the distance. Why not? Ji Fei directly chased after it. The two quickly left the battlefield and entered the starry sky. Both of them put away their weapons and directly started fighting. Here, they could attack without any scruples. Kill. Ji Fei directly strode through the void, his figure becoming somewhat illusory, emitting a terrifying aura that could shake the heavens and earth. The void beneath his feet was collapsing. The void under his feet was collapsing, and a pitch-black spatial crack spread out under his feet. Like a supreme god of war, Ji Fei pressed towards the chaotic Dao body. He was like a moving ancient divine mountain, giving people an extremely powerful and oppressive feeling. The vast and mighty power that emanated from his body shattered the void, as if the entire world could no longer contain his powerful martial body. Swoosh! Feeling the strong pressure from Ji Fei, the chaotic Dao body's head shot out a chaotic divine light, piercing towards Ji Fei. This chaotic divine light contained the Dao pattern of the Great Path, which was the embodiment of the power of the Dao. It could hurt a sage. The chaotic Dao body was probing. Ji Fei directly raised his right hand and pressed it forward. An immeasurable power emanated from his palm. The void in front of his palm suddenly shook violently. A divine light suddenly emerged and then surged forward. The beam of primal chaos divine light was annihilated by an endless stream of divine light. Ji Fei had displayed great battle prowess and directly obliterated that beam of primal chaos divine light. This, the chaotic Dao body had no choice but to become serious. His opponent's performance had already exceeded his expectations. The human race martial body had a great reputation in ancient times. This was not a lie. Rule the chaos. The chaotic Daoist body let out a loud cry, and endless chaotic divine light rushed out of his body. The entire void seemed to have turned into chaos in an instant. The chaotic Dao body seemed to be opening the sky, and the world was sinking. The chaotic light filled every inch of the void, and the entire starry sky seemed to be devoured by the chaos. The whole world was shaking. Above the sky, numerous chaotic patterns appeared, like a boundless magic net, covering the sky and the earth. This was the killing move of the chaotic Dao body. Heaven and earth were sealed by the chaos. Ji Fei had no way to retreat, and could only passively accept this move of the chaotic Dao body. At this moment, the shaman land was turned into ruins. He Tian launched the killing formation without caring about the cost. Countless undying soldiers died, and an endless amount of soul power was devoured by the killing formation. The soul power of all living beings was transformed into endless combat power. He Tian's killing formation devoured all the power in the world and raised its power to the limit. This was a power that surpassed the great saint level. Even the four groups of ancient soldiers turned pale. Up until now, both sides had suffered casualties, but the Saint Empress side had suffered more than He Tian's. The 100,000 celestial soldiers were almost crippled, and the ancient soldiers awakened from the ancestral veins of the earth were also injured. However, even at this moment, the mysterious Saint Emperor still did not show himself. Instead, an extremely powerful aura spread out from Shaman City, which had risen from the ground to the sky. This aura made everyone afraid, because it was the aura of a peerless existence. It was an existence that could dominate a region in the human realm. Preposterous. Erebus had to admit that although they could put up a fight against such an ancient inheritance, the final result would not change much. Tilda. Chapter 1583. Tilda. He Tian didn't want to leave just like that because he was being chased away. If He Tian couldn't take it lying down, the consequences would be dire. Without any suspense, the fierce battle began. Royal voids, demigods, saints, and even immortals and Shen King all fell. Blood sprayed across the sky. Kill. 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 The sky and earth collapsed. The entire shaman land shook, alarming countless cultivators. Several forbidden lands in the human world sent out powerful divine wills, which entered the shaman land directly. The ancient inheritance appeared before the world and displayed terrifying combat power. The human world was shaken and everyone was paying close attention. This battle was definitely the fiercest in the past century. In order to take back the shaman land, the ancient inheritance was willing to pay any price. Rumble, in the starry sky, Jiyu Fei and the chaotic body were also fighting. Endless chaos surged and the world seemed to have returned to the time before the chaos was created. Bam! A giant hand of chaos shrouded the heavens and earth as it slammed towards Jiyu Fei. Chaos Dao runes appeared on the giant hand, destroying everything in their path as they unleashed terrifying energy ripples. Whoosh! Divine light flashed between Jiyu Fei's eyebrows. Beams of violet light shot out continuously, destroying the void and destroying the chaotic hand. They also pierced towards the figure in the depths of the chaos. Every beam of divine light was like a heavenly sword, containing sword chi of the great path. Every beam could kill immortals and gods. This was one of the 9 secrets of the immortal path. When used by Jiyu Fei, it was very powerful. Primordial spirit sword of the way. The chaotic body recognized this secret technique and was very shocked. This kind of sword was indestructible. Although it wasn't a true heavenly sword, it was even more terrifying than one. Boom! Suddenly, an endless amount of chaotic force surged out from the body of the chaotic way. A terrifying pressure descended upon the world like 100,000 mountains. The stars trembled and the stars seemed like they were about to fall. Endless chaos Dao patterns condensed and sealed the primordial soul Dao sword that pierced through. This was also a killing technique, and the chaos Dao patterns suppressed the void. When the two powers collided, Jiyu Fei's primordial soul Dao sword and the chaos Dao body's Dao pattern were annihilated. Chaotic body, let me see how strong you are. Jiyu Fei yelled and pressed forward with his right hand. Boundless chaotic true energy condensed on his fist. His fist turned into the size of a hill and smashed towards the chaotic Daoist body. Although he didn't have a chaotic Daoist body, he had cultivated chaotic true power. Jiyu Fei's true power was constantly transforming. This kind of power was constantly transforming into the most primitive power. Rumble, Jiyu Fei's fist emitted a terrifying energy fluctuation, shaking a part of the starry sky. Several large stars nearby were shattered by his fist. The fist energy surged violently, as if doomsday had arrived. Primal chaos world. The chaotic Daoist body yelled, and endless chaos Dao patterns rushed out from his body. A part of the chaotic void appeared, and he opened up a part of the world. A black hole of chaos appeared above the starry sky. It produced a heaven-devouring power and tried to devour Jiyu Fei. Inner world. Jiyu Fei was shocked. This chaotic Daoist body was extraordinary. He had cultivated an inner world, and the cultivators who controlled an inner world were far stronger than ordinary cultivators. Controlling a part of the world meant that the cultivator's power could be increased infinitely in this part of the world, and the cultivator could exert more powerful attacks than in the outside world. You have an inner world, but so do I. Jiyu Fei smiled. He then drew a line in the void in front of him with both hands. A spatial crack appeared in front of him, and the power of heaven and earth surged out, blocking the devouring power from the black hole of chaos. Yes. The chaotic Daoist body was surprised. He didn't expect that Jiyu Fei had also cultivated an inner world. Moreover, Gu Fei's inner world seemed to be more powerful than his. Rumble, Gu Fei's inner world completely appeared. He stood in that part of the world and attacked the chaotic Daoist body. The power of heaven and earth was under his control, and his combat power suddenly multiplied. The chaotic Daoist body sneered. The black hole of chaos in the starry sky immediately disappeared and turned into a chaotic world, suppressing Gu Fei. The two inner worlds collided, causing Gu Fei's inner world to shake violently. Mountains crumbled, rivers evaporated, and heaven and earth trembled. Kill. Gu Fei and the chaotic Daoist body launched the most intense battle. The two of them constantly attacked each other's inner worlds, destroying everything in their way. Neither of them used their holy weapons. All kinds of killing techniques were constantly displayed. It had to be said that the chaotic Daoist body was really powerful. It fought with Gu Fei endlessly, and it was difficult to determine the winner in a short time. Bang! Gu Fei's fist collided with the chaotic Daoist body's fist. A circle of ripples visible to the naked eye spread from the two's fists. Boom! The two of them exerted their strength at the same time. The space between them instantly collapsed and was directly annihilated. The inner worlds behind them also collapsed at the same time. Good. Gu Fei's eyes were as sharp as cold lightning. He felt a stabbing pain in his right fist. The chaotic force that erupted from the opponent's fist was like a divine needle, drilling into his fist through his pores. This chaotic force was different from the chaotic qi that Gu Fei cultivated. He could not refine it for his own use. He could only force it out of his fist. With a sizzling sound, streams of chaotic force that were almost invisible to the naked eye rushed out from the pores on Gu Fei's hand. The martial body is really powerful. The chaotic qi lingered. The chaotic martial body was secretly shocked. He knew that the martial body was cultivated, but it could compete with the natural chaotic body. The attack just now almost broke his arm, and a few bloody marks appeared on his fist. However, the chaotic Daoist body was very special. It was born close to chaos, so even if it was seriously injured, it could recover instantly. Again, Gu Fei was born to be a warrior. He charged forward and punched out with his fists, causing the stars in the starry sky to tremble and look as though they were about to fall. You think I'm afraid of you? The chaotic Daoist body was extremely powerful, and its battle intent was also like a rainbow. The chaotic technique shook the starry sky. When the two geniuses met, there would definitely be the most brilliant sparks. At this time, the battle between He Tian and the mysterious ancient inheritance had also reached a climax. The essence of the ancestral Earth Meridian was activated by the ancient weapon. It was like a real heavenly soldier had descended to the world. It displayed its terrifying battle strength and suppressed He Tian's killing formation. The ancient inheritance had the advantage of time and place. With the support of the 100,000 miles of the shaman land, it was already in an invincible position. He Tian knew that he could not gain any advantage. Mahakala drove the killing formation and rushed out of the sorcerer's land. He wanted to leave the sorcerer's land. The entire sorcerer's land had become a shocking killing formation. If he did not leave, even a real great saint would be killed. Tilda. Chapter 1584. Please remember the domain name of this website. The entire land of shamans was filled with divine light and the essence energy of the earth rose. The grand scheme laid down thousands of years ago had finally appeared before everyone's eyes. Everyone was stunned. Such a big move was beyond everyone's imagination. It was too terrifying. 100,000 miles of the sorcerer's land had turned into a killing trap. It was especially so for West Earth. The essence energy of the entire land was boiling as if it had been ignited and was being devoured by the 100,000 miles of shaman land. What? Someone is scheming against West Earth's Buddhism. Someone is scheming against West Earth. No one wasn't shocked. Such a result was enough to shock the world. It had to be known that Buddhism had stood in West Earth for countless years. Not only had it not been destroyed in the long river of time, it had also gradually become stronger. The vast majority of the millions and millions of living beings in West Earth believed in Buddhism. This was something that no power in the human world could compare to. In the human world, other than Buddhism, no power could dominate a region. In the endless years, it wasn't that West Earth's Buddhism hadn't encountered great calamities, but in the end, they were all resolved. The inheritance of Buddhism had never been severed. And now, someone was actually targeting West Earth's Buddhism and setting up such a shocking killing trap. What kind of power was this for it to be so powerful? Boom! At the moment Yenwu City was completely revived, a vast wave of Buddhist power swept out from West Earth. The entire land and the entire sky trembled. In the void, there seemed to be a supreme Buddha chanting scriptures. A peaceful Buddhist aura spread through the world, causing the desolate aura of the shaman land to fade. Buddhism finally felt that something was wrong. On the Spirit Mountain in the depths of West Earth, a supreme Buddhist weapon was reviving, and a wisp of extreme Tao aura appeared in West Earth. Sensing this extreme Tao aura, everyone was shocked to the extreme. Buddhism had actually used extreme Tao Buddhist weapon. This wasn't a small matter. The appearance of Buddhism's power greatly reduced the pressure on He Tian. He controlled the killing formation and rushed out 10,000 miles in one breath. He rushed out before the shaman land was completely sealed. Wherever this fiend controlled the killing formation, everyone retreated in panic. This deathly aura was simply too powerful, and everyone's expression changed. This was a ruthless character. He actually dared to challenge the ancient inheritance. This was not something that an ordinary person would dare to do. This required great courage and resolution. Kill. The 100,000 celestial soldiers and 2,000 ancient soldiers followed closely behind He Tian as they charged out of the shaman land. Their will to fight was monstrous, and a terrifying aura spread in all directions. Especially the 2,000 ancient soldiers that had been nourished by the Earth Ancestors' vein for countless years, each of them emitted a monstrous aura. Within Jiyu Zhanbing's body, there seemed to be a hidden dragon. The essence of the ancestral Earth Meridian gathered in their bodies, forming an extremely powerful force. These ancient soldiers were incomparably valiant. The strength of their corporeal bodies could be compared to almighty realm warriors. Although there weren't many of them, they were all soldiers that had been through hundreds of battles. This ancient soldier was definitely one of the trump cards of this mysterious ancient inheritance. It was left behind for the future. Once it appeared, it would be able to conquer all directions. Everyone who witnessed the combat power of this ancient soldier felt their hearts palpitate. Even the royal family of the three eternal empires that had been passed down for 10,000 years were very fearful. How dare you? We haven't even played yet and you're already done. He Tian was enraged. He wanted to leave, but the other party didn't let him. He was already filled with anger. He gritted his teeth and spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. He was risking his life. He Tian used his own blood as a guide and completely activated the Great Sage's divine diagram below the formation platform. Countless Tao patterns intertwined on the diagram. Rumble. The diagram emitted a monstrous wave of energy. The divine diagram and the killing formation's inscriptions fused together. The two complemented each other and pushed the killing formation's power to its peak. The combination of the killing formation and the Great Sage's divine diagram produced a power that surpassed the Great Sage's. The heavens trembled and the stars in the sky looked as though they were about to fall. No one dared to go near the killing formation. The killing formation was enveloped by a peerless killing intent. If one barged in, there would only be death. No one wanted to commit suicide. The undead army in the killing formation became even more ferocious. They continued to fight against the celestial soldiers that were chasing after them. The 3 undying emperors were even more ferocious. Roar! The Corpse King roared. His voice shook the heavens and earth. He grabbed a general with his bare hands and tore the general in half. Fresh blood splattered on the Corpse King's body. That was the Shun King's blood. It contained a huge amount of essence. Strands of blood quickly seeped into the Corpse King's body. This scene was extremely strange. The Corpse King was devouring the Shun King's blood. Awesome. The Corpse King was shrouded in a bloody mist. His corpse chi started to retract. However, this undying emperor seemed to be even more powerful and terrifying. He seemed to be able to break through the shackles of cultivation at any time. After this battle, the surviving undead creatures had obtained great benefits. Especially the evil corpse king, the Netherworld Emperor, and the Undying Emperor. Their cultivation had reached a bottleneck. It would be very difficult for them to advance further. But now, after devouring a large amount of life force from the celestial soldiers, the shackles of cultivation of the 3 Undying Emperors began to loosen. There were signs of a breakthrough. 4 powerful figures rushed towards the 3 Undying Emperors. They were 4 ancient generals. Although they had just awakened, their fighting strength was monstrous. Clang! A middle-aged general held a divine sword and charged towards the evil corpse emperor. He fought with the evil corpse emperor, while the other 3 ancient generals fought against the emperor of the underworld and the undead emperor. Swish! The bone blade in the undead emperor's hand turned into a ray of white light that enveloped the 3 ancient war generals, displaying his unparalleled battle prowess. One of the ancient generals sneered. This fellow actually wanted to fight against the 3 great experts on his side by himself. He simply didn't know the difference between life and death. The general held a saber and directly rushed towards the Undying Emperor. The saber in his hand burst out thousands of saber lights, and divine patterns of the great path appeared on its surface. This was a divine saber. The 2 streaks of blade light clashed together in an instant, exploding with a powerful light that lit up the entire world. Even the sun in the sky seemed to dim in that instant. The Undying Emperor fought against this ancient general, while the other 2 ancient generals were intercepted by the Netherworld Emperor. Swish! The Netherworld Emperor instantly transformed into thousands of shadows. The void was densely packed with shadows of the Netherworld Emperor. No one knew which shadow was the real body of the Netherworld Emperor. Just as He Tian was going all out, the battle between Ji Yufei and the chaotic Dao body had also reached a white-hot stage. Both of them were fighting with all their might. Bang! Ji Yufei punched the shoulder of the chaotic Dao body. The entire shoulder of the chaotic Dao body was badly mutilated. Even the bones were coming out. At the moment when the chaotic Dao body was sent flying, the chaotic Dao body's right leg had already swept Ji Yufei's waist. This kick caused cracks to appear on Ji Yufei's spine. The 2 figures instantly crossed each other and flew tens of thousands of feet away at the same time. For the latest and fastest chapters, please log in. Reading is a pleasure. I suggest you collect it. Chapter 1585. Please remember the domain name. Or at Ji Yufei and the chaotic Daoist physique were in the formation above the starry sky. Many people noticed the battle because powerful energy waves were descending from the starry sky. The battle between the 2 young experts shocked everyone. They were even more shocked when they saw the chaotic Daoist physique. That's the Daoist physique that was born to be close to chaos. The chaotic Daoist physique has appeared. Who is that? He can actually compete with the chaotic Daoist physique. The appearance of the chaotic Daoist physique made all the experts afraid. The chaotic Daoist physique was one of the most powerful physiques in the world. Some people said that the chaotic Daoist physique had the bloodline of the chaotic god tribe. The chaotic god tribe was born from chaos and was extremely powerful. When the experts saw that Ji Yufei could fight with the chaotic Daoist physique, they could not help but feel fear. The chaotic Daoist physique was extremely powerful and was born to be close to the power of chaos. A chaotic Daoist physique that had reached the great accomplishment was definitely a supreme existence. The combat power displayed by the chaotic Daoist physique was enough to shock the world. However, Ji Yufei was not weak either. His fists shook the starry sky and kept colliding with the chaotic Daoist physique. Too powerful. Could this be the legendary human martial physique? In ancient times, the human martial physique was synonymous with power. The martial path created by the supreme martial ancestor could be cultivated to the great accomplishment realm and the indestructible body. A warrior with an almost indestructible body was definitely a terrifying existence. In ancient times, only the chaotic Daoist physique, the innate 5 elements physique, and a few other nature-defying physiques could compete with the martial physique. While the martial physique could be cultivated, the innate physique like the chaotic Daoist physique was innate. These nature-defying physiques did not appear at all times. Therefore, the martial physique was the most frightening. It should be known that this kind of physique could be cultivated. Although not all warriors could cultivate this kind of physique, the martial physique had appeared in various times. However, in the past tens of thousands of years, martial arts began to decline. That was why the human martial physique did not appear in the eyes of the world. However, the appearance of Jiyu Fei had undoubtedly broken the world's understanding. How could the body of the human clan be strong enough to be mentioned in the same breath as the monster clan, the beast clan, and the demons? Boom! The sound of wind and thunder came from Jiyu Fei's body. This was the sound of the chaotic Shen Qi circulating rapidly in his body. He and the chaotic Shen Qi collided head-on, and his waist was swept by the chaotic Shen Qi. The power of the chaotic Daoist body's kick was so powerful that it almost broke Jiyu Fei's spine. Jiyu Fei's muscles and bones trembled, and a powerful life force was released. The cracked spine was immediately repaired. The chaotic Dao body was punched in the left shoulder by Jiyu Fei, and his entire shoulder almost exploded. His flesh was badly mutilated, and even his bones could be seen. The power of the punch was so great that it could even shatter a divine mountain. However, it only managed to severely injure the body of the chaotic Wei. Roar! The chaotic Daoist body roared angrily, and the chaotic energy surged. The muscles, bones, and flesh of the badly mutilated left shoulder grew rapidly, and the necrotic body quickly fell off. In just a few breaths, such a serious injury was healed. The recovery ability of the chaotic Dao body was also amazing. The left shoulder was as good as new, as if it had never been injured. However, there was a big hole in the clothes on the shoulder, and it was stained with chaotic blood. Jiyu Fei did not feel good either. The clothes on his body were already in tatters. Kill! Jiyu Fei roared. His fighting will was still like a rainbow. His long hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were as sharp as cold lightning. He took a step forward and instantly crossed the void between the two. He came in front of the chaotic Dao body and threw a punch. It was an ordinary punch that seemed to be thrown casually, but it contained the power of the Great Path. When the punch was thrown, the void collapsed, and the powerful force collided with the chaotic Dao body. Jiyu Fei displayed the invincible fist will. With just one punch, he sealed off all of the chaotic Daoist body's escape routes, forcing the chaotic Daoist body to fight him head-on. If the chaotic Daoist body retreated, his fist force would instantly surge up like a mountain torrent and smash the chaotic Daoist body. Damn it! The chaotic Dao body also saw this. He could not retreat. Once he retreated, he would lose all his advantages and be suppressed by his opponent. There was only one outcome, and that was to be killed by his opponent. Buzz! The void shook, and the chaotic Dao body went all out. His entire body was instantly shrouded by the chaotic patterns that rushed out from his body, and many chaotic divine swords appeared around him. Clang! Like the real supreme sword of chaos, countless chaotic divine swords vibrated and emitted a shocking sword aura. Then, under the control of the chaotic Dao body, they pierced towards Jiyu Fei's fist. Every single sword light contained a chaos Dao pattern, and they even split the void open. Divine patterns of the Great Path appeared on Jiyu Fei's fist. These were the patterns that he cultivated, and they triggered the power of the Great Path. This was a confrontation of the power of the Great Path. Rumble! Jiyu Fei's fist smashed the countless sword lights, but the sword lights also left streaks of sword marks on his fist. Bam! Jiyu Fei's fist shook, and countless chaotic sword lights instantly collapsed. He was like a peerless god of war, unstoppable, and his right fist firmly pushed towards the chaotic Dao body. How can he be so strong? The chaotic Dao body was extremely shocked. The power of Jiyu Fei's fist could topple mountains and overturn seas, and it seemed to be able to destroy everything. This was almost invincible power, invincible among the same level. Jiyu Fei shattered all the chaotic sword lights, and his fist directly smashed towards the chaotic Dao body's chest. The chaotic Dao body only felt as if an ancient divine mountain was crashing towards him, and the extremely strong pressure almost made it difficult for him to breathe. He could only cross his hands in front of his chest. Bam! Catcher! Ji Yufei's fist landed solidly on the arms of the chaotic Daoist body, causing the bones in the arms of the chaotic Daoist body to break, producing a hair-raising sound of broken bones. The arms of the chaotic Dao body were knocked back, and his chest was still impacted, which made the blood and qi of the chaotic Dao body tumble, and a trace of blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. Under the impact of the fierce power, the chaotic Dao body was sent flying. Swoosh! Ji Yufei used the 8 Desolation Void steps, and with just one step, he had already caught up with the chaotic Dao body, and continued to smash his right fist at the chaotic Dao body. His qi movement had already locked on the chaotic Dao body, and his momentum increased again. This punch was even more powerful than the previous one. Roar! The chaotic Dao body sensed great danger, and he roared. The power of chaos all over his body seemed to be burning, and the broken bones in his arms were instantly healed. Boom! While flying, the chaotic Dao body waved his hands, and broke the void, and a black hole appeared in front of him. He used his Chaos Divine technique with all his strength, trying to guide the power of Ji Yufei's fist into the void black hole. Recommending a book by a friend, Immortal Martial Sage. Friends who like fantasy should go support it. For the latest and fastest chapters, please go to it is a pleasure to read, and it is recommended that you collect it. Chapter 1586. Please remember the domain name of this website. Or here rumble. Chaotic divine power surged and a heaven-devouring power surged out from the pitch-black hole, trying to guide the power of Ji Yufei's punch into the black hole. It was a black hole with endless nothingness behind it. It could even devour the power of a martial sage. However, Ji Yufei's fist continued to smash forward. It was unwavering and even the heaven-devouring power could not shake it. His fist shattered the void. Bam! The black hole in the sky was shattered by the force of Ji Yufei's punch. Without any suspense, the chaotic Daoist physique was sent flying once again. This time, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Roar! The chaotic Dao physique was pitilessly powerful. He was very unwilling. If his physique could really grow, it would definitely be the most powerful physique in the world. But now, the human clan's martial body had suppressed him. This was something he could not accept. However, the truth was the truth. The current Ji Yufei was stronger than the chaotic Dao physique. His combat skills were incomparably domineering and his martial physique was abnormally strong. He was already invincible among those at the same level. Although the chaotic Dao physique had reached the 9th minor step of the Almighty and could compete with half-saints, Ji Yufei was even more terrifying than him. Ji Yufei's combat strength was so strong that he could kill half-saints. The chaotic Dao physique is extraordinary. Ji Yufei could not help but exclaim. The chaotic Dao physique was extremely powerful. If an ordinary peak Almighty took 2 punches from him, they would have already exploded. However, the chaotic Dao physique was only injured and not killed. The chaotic Dao physique lost. How is this possible? Some people noticed this battle, but all of them were dumbfounded. The pitilessly powerful chaotic body of the Great Path was actually defeated. It was unbelievable. The human martial physique is really that powerful. Someone recognized Ji Yufei's combat skills. It was a cultivation path created by the supreme martial ancestor, which was far more difficult than other cultivation paths. However, the more difficult the cultivation path was, the more powerful the cultivator would be compared to the cultivators of the same level. They could be called the emperor among the same level. How can the acquired martial body suppress the innate chaotic divine body? Many people could not believe what they were seeing. The chaotic Dao body was sent flying by the human martial body, and it was even injured, spitting out chaotic blood. This kind of god body was special. His blood wasn't red like ordinary people's. It was chaos blood, a kind of blood that contained chaos essence qi. Although this chaos Dao body was only at the pinnacle of the 9th heaven, a single drop of his blood was enough to kill an immortal god. This chaos blood was very domineering. Every part of the chaotic Daoist body was a treasure. Although you are very strong, you are not my opponent. Ji Yufei was very confident that he was invincible in the same realm. He could sweep away all opponents in the almighty realm, even if they were at the peak of the 9th heaven. Preposterous! The chaotic Daoist body roared, but he was powerless to change anything. Ji Yufei's invincible battle skill was too powerful and unstoppable. If he wanted to suppress Ji Yufei, he would have to use a power even greater than Ji Yufei's. Swoosh! A red flame rushed out of the chaotic Daoist body's body. In the flame, a divine bow condensed and was grabbed by the chaotic Daoist body. It's time to use the holy weapon. A vast and powerful aura spread out from the red divine bow in the chaotic Daoist body's hand. This was a great holy weapon. Although it had not been awakened, the aura it emitted was enough to make Ji Yufei's expression change. Ji Yufei could not throw a third punch. The aura on the red divine bow was too powerful. If he threw a third punch, he would be the one injured. He turned his right hand, and a simple and unadorned divine sword appeared in his hand. Swoosh! At this time, the chaotic Daoist body had already pulled the red divine bow. Endless Nanming Li fire gathered in his hand, and a divine arrow appeared on the divine bow. Go to hell! The chaotic Daoist body shot an arrow. The Nanming Li fire arrow turned into a divine phoenix and pounced at Ji Yufei. A terrifying fire chi burned and annihilated the void. Buzz! The divine sword in Ji Yufei's hand vibrated, and the endless Nanming Li fire was immediately dispersed by a sharp sword chi. He slashed with his sword and killed the divine phoenix that was pouncing at him. Although it did not emit an extreme divine power, the sword chi that emanated from the purple gold divine sword was extremely powerful. Even a divine arrow shot by a great holy weapon could be destroyed. Swoosh! 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 The chaotic Daoist body shot more than 10 arrows in a row. Each arrow turned into a divine rainbow that pierced through the void. Ji Yufei destroyed 9 divine rainbows in a row. His hands were trembling. The power contained in each divine rainbow was too powerful. The power of a great holy weapon could not be underestimated. Even though it had not been fully awakened, it still made Ji Yufei feel a great deal of pressure. He had no choice but to use the 8 desolate void steps to dodge the 10th divine rainbow. He didn't dare to take on the remaining shocking arrow lights. If he continued to take on these arrow lights, there was a possibility that the purple gold divine sword would fly out of his hand. Boom! An earth-shattering sound came from behind Ji Yufei. A large star was hit by the divine arrow shot by the chaotic Daoist body. It exploded and the star was about to be destroyed. This kind of power made Ji Yufei's expression change. If it was not for the purple gold divine sword in his hand, he might not even be able to block one arrow from the opponent. The chaotic Daoist body forced Ji Yufei back and then rushed down. At this time, the battle in the Shaman land was nearing its end. The entire Shaman land was awakened. He Tian had no choice but to retreat. However, before he retreated, he made up his mind and killed nearly 100 ancient soldiers. The death of nearly 100 ancient soldiers caused the so-called Saint Emperor in Yanwu City to feel pain. He ordered for the 2,000 ancient soldiers to be recalled. At this time, Yanwu City emitted an extreme power. It was as if a supreme being of the extreme path was awakening. It fought against the power of the extreme path from West Earth Spirit Mountain. The Saint Emperor in Yanwu City had to deal with the threat from West Earth Spirit Mountain. He could not spare time to deal with He Tian, so He Tian could retreat with ease. You want to leave? Ji Yufei chased down from the sky. He did not want to let this opponent go. If this chaotic Daoist body broke through the peak of the 9th level and became a half-saint, he would become a great enemy. However, the chaotic Daoist body continuously pulled the red divine bow and shot out shocking arrows to block Ji Yufei. Then, he entered the Shaman land. What a pity! Ji Yufei had to stop. The 100,000 miles of Shaman land had turned into a peerless killing trap. The power of the extreme path was awakening. If he rushed in, his life would be in danger. At this time, the aura of the extreme path emitted from Yanwu City was fighting against the power of the extreme path from West Earth Spirit Mountain. No one was willing to use the power of the extreme path to kill their opponent. Because no one could bear the consequences of using the power of the extreme path. Ji Yufei met up with He Tian and retreated in the direction of Middle Earth. Everywhere they passed, everyone retreated and did not want to get close to them. I recommend a book by a friend called The Undying Martial Saint. It is a good fantasy novel and worth reading. For the latest chapters, please log in. Reading is a pleasure. I recommend you to collect it. Chapter 1587. Please remember the domain name. Orat, the Central Plains was vast and occupied by three immortal dynasties, Southern Yang, Eastern Qi, and Northern Wei. Each dynasty had hundreds of thousands of miles of territory. The Central Plains was much larger than the Wildlands. It was also the most prosperous region in the entire Tenglong continent. There were countless humans there. The most powerful humans weren't in the four regions, but the Central Plains. The Central Plains was vast and filled with resources. Countless great sects had taken root here and recruited disciples. The strongest cultivators of the younger generation of the human race came from the three great dynasties of the Central Plains. Everyone was wary of the foundations of the three great dynasties, because these immortal dynasties had all produced real renhuangs. Human emperors weren't just emperors in the mortal world. They were the strongest beings in the world. Even great saints had to retreat if they met human emperors. In ancient times, human emperors were almost as strong as extreme supremes. Of course, that was only almost. In other words, as long as extreme supremes didn't show up, human emperors were invincible. The capital of the Yang dynasty, the Yang capital, was one of the three great cities of the Central Plains. The other two were the Qi capital of the Qi dynasty and the Wei capital of the Wei dynasty. The Yang capital had a population of tens of millions. The great sects of the Yang dynasty all had their headquarters here. It was a land of rising dragons, where ancestral veins gathered and draconic Qi rose. The ancestor of the Yang dynasty was a human emperor. When the human emperor was still in power, he used a great technique to change the geography of the land of the rising dragon so that the land of the rising dragon could continuously gather the dragon Qi of the earth. He also locked the dragon Qi of the earth so that it would not leak. The Yang capital had a large population, but most of them were ordinary people. Only cultivators could make use of the earth's essence. Artificially locking the spiritual Qi of heaven and earth in one place was heaven-defying. The Yang capital was better than any other place in the mortal world. It was heaven for cultivators. The Yang capital was the home of all the strong cultivators of the Yang dynasty. The great sects were like trees in a forest, but they all submitted to the Yang dynasty. If they didn't submit to the Yang dynasty, they wouldn't have been able to enter the Yang capital. On a mountain 100 miles away from the Yang capital stood three people. They were three young men who were intentionally hiding their auras. This place is incredible. He Tian waved the divine fire fan in his hand and rays flashed in his eyes. As an array formation grandmaster, he could tell that the land of Rising Dragon was not an ordinary place. 1,000 miles in front of him was definitely a place where innate true dragons were born. Even during the day, the shadow of a dragon could be seen looming in the sky above Yang capital. Ji Yufei was no stranger to the Yendu. Back in the day, he Tian, and Xiaoqing had emerged from the Hell Dao, fought the Lord Buddha, killed the demon shaman, and then came to the Yendu. Back then, Xiaoqing was invincible in the Yang capital, until he met the second prince of the Yang dynasty, Yang Hao. The two of them fought to a draw, neither of them able to do anything to the other. If it weren't for the grand preceptor of the Yang dynasty, a celestial being realm warrior, stopping them, Xiaoqing and Yang Hao would have both been heavily injured. Since he was here, he had to meet his old friend. Let's go. Ji Yufei took to the air above the mountain and flew forward. The land of Rising Dragon would definitely make all cultivators jealous, but no one dared to provoke the Yang dynasty. He Tian and the fatty Ji Yuzhong also took to the air and chased after Ji Yufei. Ji Yuzhong had once entered the world to cultivate, and his footprints were all over the Middle Earth and the four regions. He had been to the capital of the Yang dynasty and fought with others here, causing quite a ruckus. Soon, they were close to the Yang capital. A strong aura of life could be felt from the front, as if this was the source of life. Only a super big city like the Yang capital could have such an aura. The gigantic city gate was more than 300 meters tall. It was pitch black and looked like an enormous mountain towering there. Above the city gate, there was only a single character, Yang. It was an ancient character that was said to have been personally written by the human emperor who founded the Yang dynasty. The ancient character contained a daoist aura. Of course, only cultivators, and cultivators with extremely high cultivation levels, could see it. The handwriting of the human emperor. The last time Jiyu Fei came to the Yang capital, he did not feel anything special. However, this time was different. He had already become a supreme emperor, a ruler among the supreme emperors. Just by looking at the ancient character Yang on top of the city gate, it was as if an undefeatable human emperor had appeared before his eyes, leading countless generals to conquer the world. A godly aura, strong enough to make Jiyu Fei feel suffocated, was emitted from the ancient character Yang, causing Jiyu Fei's expression to change. The human emperor lives up to his name. Jiyu Fei withdrew his gaze and walked toward the city gate. Behind him followed a handsome young man waving the godly fire fan and a fatty with a bulky physique. A combination like this would easily attract the attention of others. These three, there was no lack of cultivators in the Yang capital. How could a place like the land of rising dragons be lacking in cultivators? Someone soon noticed the strange behavior of Jiyu Fei's group. Especially the godly fire fan in He Tian's hand, which was made from the feathers of a three-legged firebird found in the land of fallen phoenixes and fallen dragons. It contained the essence of fire of extreme yang. The godly fire fan in He Tian's hand was used to fan himself. What a waste! Whose disciple is this? He actually used the feathers of a divine bird to cool himself. Could it be that this person is a prince of the Yang royal family? Quite a few cultivators noticed the fan in He Tian's hand. In the Yang capital, these cultivators possessed an extraordinary level of knowledge. Thus, some of them cast their gazes at the divine flame fan in He Tian's hand with incomparable intensity. Go and investigate the origins of these three people. In a tea house on the side of the street, a young man in luxurious clothes and a golden crown was sitting by the window. This young man happened to be looking out of the tea house and happened to see Jiyu Fei and the others walking down the street. The young man ignored Jiyu Fei and Jiyu Zhong. His eyes were fixed on the godly fire fan in He Tian's hand. Essence of Yang flame, the young man immediately ordered his men to investigate the background of Jiyu Fei's group. An old servant in green clothes stood beside the young man. The old servant frowned when he saw his master staring at the three young cultivators on the street. Those three didn't seem to be easy to deal with. The old servant in green clothes had a strong cultivation base, but he realized that he couldn't see through the three young cultivators on the street. Experts, the old servant felt the pressure. Although his master was strong, he might not be a match for those three. If he offended someone he shouldn't, there would be endless trouble. For the latest chapters, please log in. It is a pleasure to read. I suggest you keep it. Chapter 1588. Welcome, everyone. Jiyu Fei and the others had no idea that they were being watched. One should know that there were at least hundreds of thousands of cultivators in Yang City. With so many cultivators gathered here, it was hard for them to determine if these cultivators had any malicious intent towards them. Neat as they walked on the streets of Yang capital, they could feel hundreds of powerful auras coming from both sides of the street. These auras were far stronger than the auras of mortals. Only the auras of cultivators could be this powerful. Yang capital is the holy land of cultivation in the Yang dynasty. There are countless cultivators here, and some of them are extremely powerful. The waters here are very deep, Jiyu Zhong said. This wasn't the first time Jiyu Fei and He Tian came to Yang capital. However, the last time they came, they were in a hurry and didn't have the chance to experience the prosperity of Yang capital. The streets of Yang capital were lined with shops and pedestrians. Sometimes, cultivators could even be seen in the crowd. Jiyu Fei and the others walked into a restaurant because they could sense the aura of more than 10 cultivators coming out from the restaurant. Some cultivators were having a gathering upstairs. Drunken Immortal Tavern, interesting. He Tian stopped at the entrance of the restaurant for a moment. He glanced at the plaque above the door and smiled. Then, he walked into the restaurant and caught up with Jiyu Fei and Jiyu Zhong. There were very few customers on the third floor. After Jiyu Fei's group came up, they found a corner and sat down, ordering the best immortal wine in the restaurant. The fact that this restaurant dared to use the name Drunken Immortal Residence meant that it had some real skills. The owner of this restaurant was a cultivator, and this cultivator's ancestor had passed down a secret wine recipe. Following this secret recipe, the cultivator brewed a type of immortal wine. This immortal wine was very beneficial to cultivators. Of course, this immortal wine was only beneficial to cultivators whose cultivation was not that high. If it was an immortal god, they would naturally not be interested in this immortal wine. This immortal wine was very beneficial to cultivators. Of course, it was only good for cultivators with low cultivation. Immortals naturally wouldn't be interested in this immortal wine. When the immortal wine that was said to be able to intoxicate immortals was brought out, Jiu Fei and the others laughed. How was this immortal wine? It was just a wine that contained spiritual energy. It's just something refined from some common spiritual herbs. How can something like this be called immortal brew? He Tian was disdainful. This kind of immortal brew was not worthy of his attention. Of course, they didn't come to this restaurant to taste the so-called immortal wine. Have you heard? The second prince of dynasty is going to fight the big shots from the east at the falling Phoenix Mountain. This news has already spread throughout the entire Yang capital. How could we not know about it? Do you know who is coming from the east? The dozen or so young cultivators were talking to each other. They were not very strong, and judging by their clothes, they should be the young disciples of some big sects in Yenju. The second prince of the Yang dynasty, could it be Yang Hao? He Tian looked at Jiu Fei. That should be him. Jiu Fei nodded. Back then, Xiaoqing had fought with Yang Hao, the second prince of the Yang dynasty, who had cultivated the undying battle emperor's art. In the end, neither of them could truly suppress the other, and the battle ended in a draw. The undying battle emperor's art was a supreme mysterious art passed down by the ancient emperors. When this mysterious art was cultivated to the great completion realm, one could also cultivate the indestructible body. The human world had changed, and the second prince of the Yang dynasty, Yang Hao, was still an influential figure in Yenju. From the conversations of those cultivators, Jiu Fei and the others learned a few things. Yang Hao had grown up, and even the imperial tutor of the Yang dynasty could no longer suppress him. In 3 days, Yang Hao would fight against a big shot from the east. The battle between the prince of the Yang dynasty and someone else was a big event, and the entire cultivation world of Yenju was shocked. All the big sects in Yenju were watching. With the battle approaching, many cultivators outside of Yenju also rushed to Yenju. Many people did not want to miss this battle, and there were even cultivators from the 4 big regions in Yenju. Where is Luofeng Mountain? Jiu Fei and the others did not want to miss this battle. They wanted to see how much Yang Hao had grown, but this time, Xiaoqing was not here. At this time, Xiaoqing was still in the heaven realm with the old tortoise. Jiu Fei and the others soon found out what they wanted to know. Luofeng Mountain was no stranger to the cultivators of Yenju. According to legend, it was the real land of Luofeng. In ancient times, a divine phoenix was injured by someone and recuperated in Luofeng Mountain for 1,000 years before leaving. The mountain where the divine phoenix recuperated was called Luofeng Mountain. Luofeng Mountain produced a kind of blood-colored divine jade. According to legend, this divine jade was a kind of divine material formed from the blood essence of the divine phoenix that was recuperating on the mountain. Jiu Fei and the others finally left the Drunken Immortal Tavern. However, as soon as they walked out of the Drunken Immortal Tavern, they found that they were being followed. TSK, reckless bastard. He Tian was about to kill the people who were secretly watching them, but he was stopped by Jiu Fei. Ever since He Tian fought with the person with the ancient inheritance, his murderous nature was still very strong. Just a bunch of clowns, Uncle He doesn't need to care about them. Jiu Zhong said. Even he did not care about the cultivators who were secretly watching them. Let's go. Jiu Fei led the way towards the Yang Imperial Palace. It was time to meet those people from back then. They wanted to know more about the current human realm. In the entire human realm, no one was more well-informed than the Yang Imperial dynasty. However, not everyone could enter the Imperial Palace. However, Jiu Fei was not an ordinary person. He stood in front of the palace's gate and no longer concealed his aura. A surge of qi and blood surged from Jiu Fei's body. The sudden appearance of this aura alerted many big shots in the palace. That friend is here to visit. An old voice came from the depths of the palace. Then, a figure walked out from the depths of the palace. It was a figure surrounded by dragon qi. Jiu Fei is here. He wants to see the imperial tutor. Jiu Fei directly stated his intention. At this time, the figure had already arrived in front of the palace gate and stood in front of Jiu Fei and the others. It was an old man. However, in the eyes of Jiu Fei and the others, this old man was like a real dragon. The power of the real dragon in his body was extremely strong, causing them to feel great pressure. Friend, you are Jiu Fei. After the appearance of the old man, the commotion in the palace immediately calmed down. The Yang Imperial Palace was incredible. Not only was there a peerless expert in charge, the entire palace seemed to be a great formation. I am Jiu Fei. Jiu Fei did not hide his identity because there was no need for him to do so now. Roar. Just at this moment, a furious roar rang out from within the palace. A figure rushed out from within the palace with a strong aura gushing out. Where is that dragon? Is he here too? A loud voice rang out, spreading throughout the entire palace, begging to be shared. Please go to the net. Chapter 1589. Please remember the domain name. Or at Jiu Fei's arrival caused the imperial experts in the palace to feel uneasy. He was a powerful figure, and no one knew why he had come. An old member of the imperial family was alarmed and came out to greet him personally. However, before they could exchange a few words, an angry roar rang out from the palace. Where's the dragon? Is it here yet? The roar shook the sky and spread throughout the entire palace. Even the experts in other parts of Yang capital were alarmed and looked in the direction of the palace. Yang Hao, don't be presumptuous. The old member of the imperial family was a little unhappy. The newcomer was so powerful that even he couldn't see through him. Yang Hao's rudeness would cause trouble if he angered the other party. The newcomer ignored the old man and arrived in front of the palace gates in an instant. It was a young man with a majestic gait and a powerful aura. Second Prince Yang, you're not dead yet. He Tian glanced at the newcomer and said. However, he was secretly shocked. Yang Hao had only been here for 100 years, but he had already become an almighty emperor. One had to know that the second prince was not even an immortal 100 years ago, but now he was already an almighty emperor. What kind of miraculous encounters did he have? It's you. At this time, Yang Hao also recognized Erebus. Xiaoqing isn't here, but if the second prince is itching for a fight, I can spar with him. Seeing that Yang Hao had the cultivation and strength of an almighty emperor, He Tian couldn't help but feel a desire to fight. I heard that you're going to fight someone in 3 days. Who is it? Asked Jiu Fei. The small practitioners in Yang capital knew very little, so they had no idea who the big shot from the east was. That person is Emperor Dong, said Yang Hao, glancing at Jiu Fei. Emperor Dong, how arrogant. He Tian said disdainfully. In the history of the world of cultivation, those who called themselves emperors were pitilessly powerful. The big shot from the east actually dared to call himself Emperor Dong. Could it be? Jiu Fei fell into deep thought. Could it be someone from that bloodline? I can't believe that dragon didn't come. Yang Hao was a little disappointed. Back then, when he fought with Xiaoqing, under the interference of Grand Preceptor Yang, the outcome of the battle was not decided. This was one of his regrets. If you want to see Xiaoqing, you'll have to ascend to the heaven realm. He Tian said. What? Hearing this, Yang Hao couldn't help but be surprised. Even the eyes of the elder from the Yang kingdom brightened. The heaven realm, such a name was enough to attract everyone's attention. 100 years ago, when the sky market was in chaos, someone saw you enter the heaven realm. I didn't expect this to be true. Yang Hao was incomparably shocked. The news of the immortal dynasty was extremely well informed. You can still come back after entering the heavenly realm. The elder from the Yang kingdom was also shocked at this time. It should be known that the path to heaven had long been severed. No one had ascended in the human realm for more than 100,000 years. In the human realm, the only way to enter the heaven realm was through the sky tower left behind by the supreme Tao ancestor. However, this sky tower appeared in the sky market and caused a commotion in all directions. In the end, it was taken away by Ghost Emperor Fengju. During the battle of the sky market, many people died. It was one of the rare disturbances in 100 years. In the end, Ji Yufei and the others were invited to the Yang Kingdom's palace by the elder and Yang Hao. People who could return from the heaven realm were worth befriending. It should be known that the heaven realm had become a legend in the human realm. All the major powers in the human realm wanted to know about the situation in the heaven realm. It could be said that Ji Yufei and the Yang Kingdom each took what they needed. Ji Yufei wanted to know about the changes in the human realm in the past 100 years, while the Yang Kingdom wanted to know about the situation in the heaven realm from Ji Yufei. There had been rumors in the human realm that the gate of heaven and earth would reopen. At that time, the experts of the human realm would be able to ascend to the heaven realm. Almost all the major powers were preparing. Some people wanted to make a move on Ghost Emperor Fengju because he had the sky tower that all cultivators coveted. This was the only supreme sacred item in the human realm that could open the passage between the heaven realm and the human realm. However, Ghost Emperor Fengju was extremely powerful. All those who dared to make a move on him were killed by him. Even some of the old antiques were killed by him. Some people said that Ghost Emperor Fengju had already become a saint. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have such powerful battle prowess. Others said that Ghost Emperor Fengju was a supreme being. In short, Ghost Emperor Fengju was one of the few supreme existences in the human realm that couldn't be provoked. His strength was a mystery. No one knew how powerful these existences were. Ji Yufei stayed in the Yang Imperial Palace for a few hours. He found out the whereabouts of Imperial Preceptor Yang. It turned out that Imperial Preceptor Yang had fallen 10 years ago. He was killed by a young expert from the Southern Wasteland. This matter once shook the Southern Wasteland. The Yang Imperial family wanted to take revenge, but they were stopped by the Yang Emperor because Imperial Preceptor Yang was killed during a duel. And the one who killed Imperial Preceptor Yang was called Azure Dragon. When night fell, Ji Yufei declined Yang Hao's good intentions. He didn't stay in the Yang Imperial Palace for the night. They left the palace and found an inn to stay in. I didn't think that the big shot from the east would actually be from that family. In the guest room of the inn, Ji Yufei's expression was not very good. This was because he had heard from Yang Hao that the person who would fight with Yang Hao in 3 days was an expert of the younger generation from the Dongfang family. That Dong Huang was very mysterious. He had never shown his true appearance to anyone. Nobody even knew if the person called Dong Huang was a man or a woman. However, one thing was certain, and that was that this Dong Huang was one of the strongest people in the eastern region. The Zhao family of the Desolation in the eastern domain also produced a genius who was equally stunning. The human world ushered in a great era. In this great era, experts emerged in large numbers. There were constantly peerless figures rising rapidly. Experts from all sides would collide with each other and create the most brilliant sparks. As a warrior, Ji Yufei was a natural god of war. In such a great era, he wouldn't be lonely. Dongfang Chen of the Eastern family was killed by Yu long ago. He Tian knew about the grudge between Ji Yufei and the Eastern family. Ji Yufei didn't just kill Dongfang Chen. Back then, he also burned a big shot of the Eastern family to death. It could be said that Ji Yufei and the Eastern family had already formed a great enmity. No one could resolve this enmity. But Ji Yufei didn't want to start a massacre. After all, he had already killed Dongfang Chen. Master, we can't afford to offend that person. At this time, under a flowering tree in a courtyard in Yangdu, an old servant in a green robe was saying something to a well-dressed young man. What do you mean we can't afford to offend him? The young man's eyes shot out 2 rays of light. In this Yangdu, there are people that I, Song Tian, can't afford to offend. The young man was very proud. Recommended a fantasy novel by a friend, Immortal Martial Saint, ranked 2nd in the fantasy novel list. Not bad. For the latest and fastest chapters, please log in. Reading is a pleasure. I suggest you collect it. Chapter 1590. Please remember the domain name of this website. The Song clan of Yang capital was a large clan. In a place like Yang capital, there was no lack of large sects, and the Song clan was one of them. Song Tian was the second-generation ancestor of the Song clan. He was a good-for-nothing and didn't dare to do anything too outrageous in Yang capital. On this day, Song Tian had his eyes on 3 outsiders. He sent his subordinates to investigate the background of these 3 people and found out that they had no power in Yang capital at all. The cultivation of these 3 people was not high, but the things they had on them were of the highest grade. Song Tian didn't want to let go of such fat sheep. He guessed that these 3 people should be here to watch the battle between the second prince and Dong Huang. The news of the battle between the second prince and Dong Huang at Luofeng Mountain spread throughout the entire cultivation world of the Yang dynasty. Dong Huang, a young expert of the eastern region, was extremely powerful. He had once entered the eastern region Devil Cave and killed a great demon, bringing out the head of that great demon. The eastern region Devil Cave was a forbidden area in the eastern region. Legend had it that there was a great demon sleeping in the Devil Cave. It was a place that even the experts of the older generation were unwilling to set foot in. Being able to enter the Devil Cave and kill a great demon was enough to show how powerful this so-called Dong Huang was. The battle between Yang Hao and Dong Huang caused a lot of commotion in the cultivation world. Many people wanted to watch the battle, and the number of cultivators in Yang capital gradually increased. 3 days passed quickly. During this time, Ji Yufei and the others went out a few times, and each time they found someone following them. There are too many people who don't know the difference between life and death these days. He Tian said such words, and his killing intent was already aroused. This time, Ji Yufei didn't stop He Tian. These people were too despicable, and he had already given them a chance. In the cultivation world, kindness to the enemy was cruelty to oneself. On the morning of the 3rd day, Ji Yufei and the others left the inn and went out of Yang capital. At this time, many cultivators were heading out of Yang capital. At noon on Luofeng Mountain, the second prince of Yang and Dong Huang, who had come from the eastern region, would fight at the summit of the mountain. According to the legend, the mountain where the divine phoenix once landed was located in the mountains 3,000 miles away from the Yang capital. It was still early, so Ji Yufei and the others were not in a hurry. They walked along the main road outside of Yenju, all the way to Fallen Phoenix Mountain. There were many cultivators on the road, and not far behind Ji Yufei and the others were 2 people. Looks like we're going to see blood again, He Tian sighed. He couldn't be bothered to kill these weaklings. However, these people were courting death. Since they dared to provoke him, he would just have to reluctantly send them to the Western Paradise. After walking for a few hundred miles, there was no more road ahead. Ji Yufei and the others had already arrived at a remote area, and there were very few people here. When they arrived in front of a forest, a figure silently walked out of the forest and blocked their way. Finally, can't wait to fight. He Tian smiled. The reason why they walked so slowly was to see who had eaten a bear's heart and leopard's heart to dare to fight against them. It was an old man in cyan clothes. There was no aura coming from the old man's body. He was like an ordinary person without any magic power. Who are you? Ji Yuzhong walked up and stared at the old man in cyan clothes. His voice was extremely cold. Celestial being Shen King, seeing Ji Yuzhong, the eyes of the old man in cyan clothes could not help but shrink. This person was very powerful. He turned out to be an emperor of the celestial being realm, which was beyond the old man's expectation. Boom! A shocking aura suddenly erupted from the old man in cyan clothes. Suddenly, the whole area was set off by a strong airflow, and leaves were flying all over the sky. You are also an emperor. Ji Yuzhong was very surprised. He did not expect that this old man who looked like an ordinary person was actually an emperor of the celestial being realm. He had met his match. War slave, kill them. A cold voice came from the forest. Scoundrel, come out. Ji Yuzhong's sword-like eyebrows stood up, and then he directly slapped his palm towards the forest. The powerful palm force shook the void, and visible ripples could be seen in the void in front of his palm. Master, run. The old man in cyan clothes knew that he was in big trouble today. He shouted loudly and waved his hands. Rays of divine light rushed out from his hands and strangled towards Ji Yuzhong. Ji Yuzhong sneered. He did not stop slapping his palm. Instead, he pressed his left hand towards the old man in cyan clothes. Rays of dazzling divine light collapsed under his palm. Boom! A loud sound rang out. The whole forest was instantly turned to ashes by Ji Yuzhong's palm force. A figure was sent flying, and blood sprinkled in the air. Master, when the old man in cyan clothes saw this scene, he could not help but turn pale. If anything happened to his master, he would also be buried with him. You dare to be distracted while fighting with me. Taking advantage of the shock of the old man in cyan clothes, Ji Yuzhong had already used the 8 desolate steps and instantly approached the old man in cyan clothes. Then, he slapped his palm on the old man's chest. Bang! With a muffled sound, the old man in cyan clothes was sent flying by Ji Yuzhong's palm. His chest caved in, and the sound of bones breaking came from the old man's body. Ah! Mouthfuls of blood gushed out of the old man's mouth. The blood was mixed with broken internal organs. Ji Yuzhong's palm was almost about to explode the old man's body. Who are these people? The old man was shocked. He wanted to escape, but he found that Ji Yuzhong had already caught up to him and directly smashed his head with a punch. Swoosh! A ray of divine light soared into the sky. Within the divine light, there was a small figure. It was the old man's soul that had escaped, and it wanted to break through the void and escape. However, at this time, He Tian stretched out his hand and directly caught the soul in his hand. Then, he swallowed it. The old man's soul was refined into the purest form of soul energy and was absorbed by He Tian. Swoosh! Ji Yufei took a step forward and directly arrived in front of the young cultivator that was sent flying by Ji Yuzhong's palm. He saw that the young cultivator was already heavily injured. Both of his legs were badly mutilated, and his chest was pierced by a thick tree branch. However, although the young cultivator was heavily injured, he did not die. The young cultivator roared, "You actually dared to beat me to this state. You are dead for sure. The experts of our Song clan will arrive soon." Song clan? Never heard of it. Ji Yufei didn't care about the young cultivator anymore. He didn't want to know why this person would target him. In front of a strong expert, all kinds of tricks and schemes would be useless. Ji Yufei left, and Ji Yuzhong followed. He Tian arrived in front of the young cultivator, looked at him, and smiled. Then, he directly destroyed the young cultivator's Niwen palace and destroyed his soul. Just as Erebus was about to destroy the nascent divinity of the young cultivator, a jade medallion in a pavilion in the Swallow capital suddenly exploded. For the latest and fastest chapters, please log in. Reading is a pleasure, it is recommended that you collect it. Chapter 1591. Who was it? Who killed my grandson? Although Song Tian is incompetent, he is still a direct descendant of the Song clan. Is someone challenging the Song clan? An old voice came from a pavilion in the Yang capital. That person was furious. The Song clan of the Yang capital was definitely a huge force. Song Tian's death was definitely a slap in the face to the Song clan. The death of a direct descendant was not a small matter. Soon, experts of the Song clan came out of the Song clan. At this time, Ji Yufei and the others had already arrived at the Luofeng mountain. The Luofeng mountain was located in a mountain range 3,000 miles away from the Yang capital. They did not know that the Song clan had already sent experts to chase after Song Tian's murderer. At their level of cultivation, even the Yang dynasty could not threaten them. Song Tian's incident was just a small interlude. The Luofeng mountain in front of Ji Yufei and the others was a short mountain. It was not steep and there were many mountains around it that were taller than the Luofeng mountain. However, when Ji Yufei approached the Luofeng mountain, he felt a special aura. This terrain, He Tian could also see that this area was extraordinary and was attracted by the terrain in front of him. Dao patterns intertwined in his eyes. He used the yin-yang divine eyes and carefully observed the situation in front of him. Amazing. No wonder there are rumors of an injured divine phoenix recuperating here. He Tian's eyes became brighter and brighter. The entire terrain in front of him appeared in his mind. Uncle Master He, what is so special about the place in front of us? Jiyu Zhong did not understand array formations, and he did not know how to observe the sky or the terrain. In his eyes, the short mountain in front of him that was surrounded by mountains was not special at all. Boy, learn a little. Do you see the mountains in front of us? Don't they look like dragons? He Tian pointed ahead and said. This, after listening to Mahakala's explanation, Jiyu Zhong was able to see some differences. If the surrounding mountains could be seen as great dragons, then the short mountain would be surrounded by great dragons, and the short mountain itself would seem to be the divine pearl that the great dragons were fighting over. Dragons fighting for pearls? Jiyu Fei's heart trembled. The legendary place where the divine phoenix once resided was indeed extraordinary. This is the terrain of two dragons vying for a pearl. The mountains around the short mountain are like two huge dragons surrounding the short mountain. The two towering peaks are the dragon heads. He Tian said as he pointed at the mountain in front of them. He was an array master, and his forte lay in observing the sky and looking at the terrain. Although this kind of terrain was rare, it was not heaven-defying. One had to know that the Earth Dragon Qi within a radius of 10,000 miles was constantly gathering towards the Yang capital. The terrain here was on a completely different level compared to the Yang capital's rising dragonland. There were no sects or forces occupying the fallen Phoenix Mountain. It was not that no one wanted this place, but because it was near the capital of the Yang dynasty, no one dared to occupy this spiritual land. This area became the private property of the Yang dynasty. This time, Yang Hao, the second prince of Yang Kingdom, and Dong Huang, the big shot from the east, were going to fight here. At this time, many cultivators had already arrived near Luofeng Mountain. All the sects in the Yang capital did not want to miss such a great battle. In the past 100 years, the cultivation world of the Tenglong continent ushered in a blowout type of development. Peerless geniuses quickly rose from all the major regions. Yang Hao emerged from the Yang dynasty, Dong Huang emerged from the eastern domain's Dongfang family, and also the South Wasteland and the West Earth. These rising stars even surpassed the experts of the older generation. With the arrival of the Great Era, experts from all over the world have already shown their brilliance. The cultivation world of the human world ushered in a golden age. Jiyu Fei and the others found a mountain and waited there. They occupied the best spot, and some of the experts in the Yang capital were not happy. It was a bit too much for a few outsiders to occupy a mountain. However, Jiyu Fei and the others didn't care about the gazes of others. He Tian even took out a table and 3 chairs from his inner world and placed some fruits on the table. Of course, these fruits were not ordinary. They were fresh fruits that were rarely seen in the human world. He Tian even placed a few peaches of immortality that could only be found in the immortal world. Who are these people? Seeing that every item He Tian took out was rare in the world, the surrounding experts couldn't help but be moved, especially the ripe peaches of immortality. No way. Isn't that the legendary peaches of immortality that can let people live for hundreds of years just by smelling it? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? This kind of fruit only grows in the heavenly realm. The great sects in the Yang capital had existed for a long time, and their knowledge was extraordinary. They recognized the peaches of immortality that He Tian took out. Did you visit the peach garden of a female immortal in the heavenly realm? Jiyu Fei gave He Tian a meaningful look. He Tian's handsome face blushed after hearing this. His eyes flickered, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he took out another pot of wine. Anything that could catch He Tian's attention was not ordinary. The so-called immortal wine from the Drunken Immortal Tavern in the Yang capital couldn't be compared to it. This was a true immortal brew. Martial Uncle He, don't tell me that this wine is also from there. Jiyu Zhong said with a smile. What do you know, little brat? Get lost. He Tian scolded. He Tian took out 3 white jade cups and filled them to the brim. A burst of wine fragrance wafted from the top of the mountain, causing the experts in the surroundings to be moved. A person who could take out such a thing must have a great background. Although the experts from the great sects were dissatisfied, they didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. Time passed by and the sun gradually reached its zenith. At this time, many cultivators had gathered around the Luofeng mountain. On the other mountains, people were bumping into each other. Everyone wanted to occupy the most advantageous position to watch the battle. During this time, many people had ideas about the mountain where Jiyu Fei and the others were, but in the end, they didn't make a move. "You three, hurry up and get down here for this, Daddy." At noon, a voice broke the silence in the depths of the mountain. Someone came to the top of the mountain where Jiyu Fei and the others were and directly told them to get lost. Courting death. This was He Tian's voice. He didn't even look at the person in the eye as he continued to enjoy the immortal wine and immortal fruit. "Fine, if you won't get lost, then go to hell." This person was very domineering. He directly waved the mace in his hand and smashed it towards Jiyu Fei and the others. There were Dao runes on the mace. It was a holy weapon. Chapter 1592. Welcome, everyone. Who is this? A saint weapon in the shape of a wolf tooth club. Could it be that madman? The experts around the fallen Phoenix Mountain were shocked. There was actually someone who dared to challenge the three people on top of the mountain. It was very surprising. "Die!" the man yelled. His entire body emitted a surging killing intent. It was as if an ancient god of death had descended. He waved the wolf tooth club in his hand and smashed it towards Jiyu Fei's group. Whoosh! Before the wolf tooth club could hit Jiyu Fei's group, a gust of wind had already swept over. The mountain immediately became a raging gale, causing sand and stones to fly. This person was tall, and he was wearing divine armor. He looked mighty, and when he smashed the mace with all his might, the entire space shook. The markings on the mace appeared, and an extremely powerful force was quickly recovering. Buzz! The space shook. An image of an ancient cauldron appeared on Jiyu Fei's body, enveloping Jiyu Zhong and He Tian. The terrifying Saint Tier aura was unable to threaten them. Swish! Jiyu Fei stood up directly. He then extended his hand and grabbed the wolf tooth club. He threw the wolf tooth club and the expert off the mountain. Seeing this, everyone was dumbfounded. They could not believe what they had just seen. There was actually someone who caught the saint weapon with his bare hands and threw the expert off the mountain with the saint weapon. Is this real? Someone's voice began to tremble. These people originally wanted to fight against Jiyu Fei's group, but they did not do anything in the end. At this moment, they secretly rejoiced. If they had done anything just now, they would probably end up even more miserable than the madman. Roar! An angry roar came from the bottom of the mountain. The madman roared as he rushed up from the bottom of the mountain. His entire body was surging with killing intent. He was a powerful expert. Although he was not a great emperor, he still made the experts from the Yang capital fearful. Rumble! The wolf tooth mace in the madman's hand rapidly grew in size. In an instant, it was as big as a mountain, appearing before everyone's eyes. An extremely powerful holy aura spread out from the mace, causing the cultivators around Luofeng Mountain to retreat in panic. The pressure of a martial sage was not something they could withstand. However, in the face of this saint-ranked pressure, Jiyu Fei's expression did not change. Does this guy really not know how to write the word death? I've already been merciful. The mace, which had transformed into the size of a mountain, smashed down from the sky. It could be seen that the madman had used all his strength. However, another scene that left everyone dumbfounded appeared. The young cultivator on top of the mountain directly punched upwards with his right hand. Bam! With a muffled sound, Jiyu Fei's fist directly collided with the huge mace. Without any suspense, the mace was sent flying by Jiyu Fei's punch. The madman roared angrily as his entire body was sent flying. His hands were dripping with blood, and he spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood in a row. His expression also became weary. This time was different from the previous time. This time, Jiyu Fei deliberately wanted to teach the madman a lesson. Therefore, he did not show any mercy this time. How can this person be so strong? Madman was sent flying 3 kilometers away. His entire body seemed to have been shattered by the powerful force that came from the wolf tooth mace. His wolf tooth mace, a sacred weapon, rapidly shrunk after receiving a blow from Jiyu Fei. It smashed into a nearby mountain, shocking the cultivators on top of the mountain. The battle prowess that Ji Yufei had displayed had stunned everyone. None of the people present had the strength to fight against a saint weapon with their bare hands. Just the mighty power of the sacred weapon alone was already unbearable for the people present. Even the madman Ju Botong was no match for that person. He only attacked twice and beat Ju Botong half to death. No one thought that they could beat the madman Ju Botong. Therefore, everyone stayed far away from the mountain where Ji Yufei and the others were. They were unwilling to go near them. Today's main characters did not appear, but this accident happened. This was just a small interlude before the big battle. Seeing that the second Prince Yang and Dong Huang had yet to arrive at noon, everyone could not help but feel a little impatient. Why isn't that guy Yang Hao here yet? He Tian sat on a chair, leisurely tasting his celestial wine and eating his celestial fruits. Ji Yuzhong could be considered to have benefited from He Tian's blessings, so he also began to enjoy himself. On the other hand, Ji Yufei was not a wine lover, and the celestial fruits that He Tian had taken out were even more inferior to the immortal fruits produced by the immortal ancestral dragon herb. Haha, brother Ji Yu is in such a good mood. Just as noon arrived, a loud laughter was heard from afar. Everyone hurriedly looked in the direction of the laughter and saw a figure slowly walking over from afar. It seemed like he was taking a leisurely stroll, but in an instant, the person had already arrived. The person took a step forward and directly climbed up the mountain where Ji Yufei and the others were. You don't have to be so punctual. He Tian's scolding voice rang out. The person who had arrived was the second prince of the Yang kingdom, Yang Hao. Today, Yang Hao's essence, qi, and spirit had been adjusted to their peak state. He Tian discovered that Yang Hao's level of practice was actually between the almighty seventh heaven and the eighth heaven, and it seemed like he could break through from the seventh heaven to the eighth heaven at any time. If he did not die in this battle, then his level of practice breaking through to the eighth heaven was already an ironclad certainty. Just at this moment, Ji Yufei suddenly sensed something. He abruptly turned his head to look at Luofeng Mountain. He saw that a figure had appeared on Luofeng Mountain at some unknown time. Dong Huang is here. Someone exclaimed. It was a white figure covered from head to toe in a battle suit. The battle suit was not simple, as it was actually refined from the ninth heaven meteorite iron. This ninth heaven meteorite iron was a type of sacred iron. Although it was not comparable to the ninth heaven star iron, it was not far off. It was very difficult to find ninth heaven meteorite iron the size of a fist in the mortal world. This battle suit refined from the ninth heaven meteorite iron was definitely a precious treasure. Is Dong Huang here? He is very punctual. Seeing the figure on Luofeng Mountain, Yang Hao's pupils involuntarily shrank. This was a powerful opponent who came from the east and had once killed a great demon in the Devil's Den of the East. Such a battle record made everyone look down on Dong Huang. It should be known that the name of Dong Huang had once been famous in the East tens of thousands of years ago. He dominated an area and intimidated all the major regions, so the experts of the major regions did not dare to set foot in the East easily. This person also called himself Dong Huang. Did he want to become the second Dong Huang? Yang Hao did not say much to Ji Yufei and the others. He directly took a step on the top of the mountain and came to Luofeng Mountain to face Dong Huang. At this time, everyone was nervous. This was a battle between almighty emperors. Even Ji Yufei had a feeling that his blood was boiling. He was a natural warrior. Chapter 1593. Welcome, everyone. The appearance of Yang Hao and Emperor Dong Huang made all the spectators nervous. This was a battle between two almighty emperors. Both of them were the best of the younger generation, but they wanted to determine a winner at this time. There was only one supreme being. Who would become the supreme being of the younger generation? This was something that everyone wanted to know. In the past 100 years, the younger generation of cultivators were too experienced. Some people said that in the past 100 years, there were already young cultivators in the human realm who had achieved the semi-sage body. Becoming a semi-sage in 100 years was simply a miracle. Many people did not believe it, but in this great world, there were many things that could not be understood with common sense. Above Luofeng Mountain, two powerful figures were confronting each other. The second prince Yang Hao and Emperor Donghuang's aura continued to rise. The powerful pressure of almighty emperors spread in all directions. Rumble, at this moment, 9 chariots appeared in the sky. These 9 chariots were like 9 huge mountains, emitting a terrifying aura as they crushed down from the sky. Every chariot had an expert sitting on it. There were dragon shadows circling around the chariots. The terrifying pressure caused the entire world to tremble. The experts of the Yang royal family have arrived. The one in the middle seems to be the Yang royal family. These 9 people are incredible. The cultivators around Luofeng Mountain were all shocked. Some people recognized the 9 experts. The 9 chariots quickly approached and stopped high in the sky. The chariot in the middle was different. There were ancient Tao patterns engraved on it, and there was an unimaginably powerful force hidden in it. This chariot was the Yang royal family's carriage. It was pulled by a strange beast that looked like a chileen. The strange beast had clouds under its feet, as if it was born to ride on clouds. The arrival of the 9 chariots caused the entire area to be filled with the roars of wild beasts. The chariots were pulled by some powerful wild beasts. These wild beasts were extremely powerful and looked ferocious. Especially the strange beast that was pulled by the Yang royal family. There was a dragon aura surrounding its body. What an ostentatious show. A sneer came from the sky opposite the 9 chariots. No one knew when, but there were 3 old men standing there. Each of them had a very obscure aura. I didn't expect the 3 Dongfang elders to come as well. This is the heritage of the Dongfang family. Legend has it that these 3 people have been asleep for countless years and have only awakened in the last 100 years. When the cultivators saw the 3 old men, there was another commotion. These 3 old men had great origins. Some people said that they were people who had lived until the late desolate era. Just like the Yang dynasty, the Dongfang family also had resources that made others wary. These forces that had human sovereigns were not simple. It should be known that human sovereigns were second only to the extreme path supremes. They were almost invincible in the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Great saints were just like ants in front of them. Some human sovereigns could even kill prospective supreme beings. 3 old farts. One of the 9 war chariots said this. What did you say? One of the 3 Dongfang elders, a tall and thin old man, immediately raised his snow-white eyebrows. His eyes flickered with an ominous glint, as if he was about to attack. Don't act rashly. Among the 3 old men, the one who seemed to be the leader stopped the tall and skinny old man. They were here to watch the battle, not to fight with Emperor Yang. A fair battle. Life and death are up to fate. You and I cannot interfere. These words came from Emperor Yang's war chariot. The voice was not loud, but it reached the ears of everyone present. All right, it should be so. The 3 Dongfang elders nodded. They would not interfere, but they had to prevent the people from Emperor Yang's side from interfering. This was a battle between the strongest of the younger generation. The older generation could not break the rules. The arrival of Emperor Yang and the 3 Dongfang elders made the surrounding atmosphere tense up. Some cultivators began to worry. If the 2 sides fought, the ones who would be unlucky would definitely be the spectators. It would not be good if they were caught in the crossfire. Many cultivators consciously retreated into the distance. Only Jiyu Fei and the others remained on the top of the mountain, as if they did not see Emperor Yang and the 3 Dongfang elders at all. Emperor Yang and the 3 Dongfang elders noticed Jiyu Fei and the others on the top of the mountain, but they did not make any aggressive moves. Emperor Yang naturally knew where Jiyu Fei and the others came from. Even the 3 Dongfang elders did not want to cause trouble at this time. Boom! At this moment, the entire area of Luofeng Mountain suddenly shook. Everyone was shocked to see that the second prince, Yang Hao, had made his move. He cultivated the Immortal War Emperor's method and had an extremely strong battle body. Although it was just a simple palm strike, it shook the entire area. Even Luofeng Mountain shook. Luofeng Mountain was not an ordinary place. This was the terrain of 2 dragons fighting for a pearl. Under the earth, there were 2 dragon veins. Luofeng Mountain was the pearl that the 2 dragons were fighting for. Yang Hao's attack directly shook the terrain. It was extremely powerful. Swoosh. Facing Yang Hao's powerful attack, Dong Huang's body suddenly became blurry. It was as if his whole body was merging with the surrounding void. Seeing Dong Huang use such a great technique, Ji Yufei and He Tian's hearts jumped. This was the profound meaning of the void. The body turned into the void. Yang Hao's powerful palm force directly passed through Dong Huang's faint and illusory figure. It was as if it hit the void without any force. One of the 9 secrets of the immortal path, the anti-void secret technique. He Tian was shocked. How could Dong Huang know such a supreme secret technique? Could it be that the Dongfang family had obtained the 9 secrets of the immortal path? If so, it was not a good thing. It's not the anti-void secret technique, it's just similar. Ji Yufei immediately saw that the great technique that Dong Huang used was also a kind of void technique. It could also turn into the void and dissolve all the power of the opponent's attack. Kill. Dong Huang's faint and illusory figure instantly solidified. Then, he stretched out his right hand. Dazzling martial light immediately shot out from his 5 fingers and pierced towards Yang Hao. Swoosh. Yang Hao soared into the sky and avoided the 5 beams of divine light. Then, he pounced on Dong Huang from the sky. The Immortal War Emperor's method was a kind of martial arts technique. The attack technique was extremely fierce. Green dragon absorbs water, Yang Hao shouted. He seemed to have turned into a divine dragon. His hands turned into a dragon's head and directly swallowed Dong Huang. Above the dragon's head, there was a devouring force that pulled Dong Huang's body, causing him to sway. All forms to the origin. Dong Huang used the divine technique. All kinds of figures appeared around him. There seemed to be a Shun King roaring, a ferocious demon roaring, and a wild beast letting out terrifying roars. Although the images were faint and illusory, they still shocked everyone. Such a strange phenomenon was too shocking. Could it be that he could really turn into all forms? In just an instant, all the illusions gathered on Dong Huang's hands, and then he struck upwards. The roaring Shun King, the crazy ferocious demon, and the wild beast all rushed out. An extremely powerful force erupted. Chapter 1594. Welcome, everyone. Dong Huang had mastered the 10,000 elephants technique. It was a terrifying technique that allowed one to create 10,000 elephants and borrow unimaginable power for one's own use. Boom. Dong Huang thrust his hands upwards. Figures of gods, demons, and beasts shot up into the sky. Murderous intent filled the air as they charged towards the azure dragon that was swooping down from the sky. Rumble. The 2 forces collided in an instant. All the illusions disappeared, and the azure dragon that Yang Hao had conjured also disappeared. The 2 forces collided and formed a destructive force that caused the void to collapse. Luofeng Mountain was shaking. Cracks appeared on the surface of the mountain, and traces of dragon qi seeped out from the cracks. The dragon vein of the earth was shaken. Luofeng Mountain was not an ordinary place. The entire Luofeng Mountain was actually a divine pearl that the 2 dragons were fighting over. It contained dragon qi. Only such a place could withstand the power of Yang Hao and Dong Huang and not collapse immediately. If it had been any other place, this attack from Yang Hao and Dong Huang would have been able to raise the surrounding area to the ground. Die. Yang Hao did not hold back anymore. He knew that Dong Huang was the second most powerful opponent he had encountered besides Xiaoqing. Yang Hao activated the Immortal Battle Emperor spell at high speed. The shadow of a dragon appeared on Yang Hao's body. He looked like a true dragon descending upon the world, displaying the great arts of Emperor Yang as he attacked Emperor Dong Huang. Dragon qi continuously rose from the ground and was devoured by Yang Hao, causing his combat power to increase continuously. This place of the 2 dragons fighting for the pearl was extremely beneficial to him. Oh no! The 3 elders of the Dongfang clan could not help but worry when they saw this. The dragon vein of the earth provided Yang Hao with an endless supply of dragon qi. It was as if Yang Hao had an inexhaustible amount of power. This was definitely not a good thing for Dong Huang. Yang Hao is not stupid after all, attracting the essence of the dragon vein for his own use. Ji Yufei saw this and knew that Yang Hao had a higher chance of winning than Dong Huang. This was because Yang Hao had the advantage of time and place. Such an advantage greatly increased his chances of winning. However, a scene that shocked everyone happened. A dragon shadow also appeared on Dong Huang's body. He had also attracted the dragon qi of the earth. What? How is this possible? This Dong Huang has also mastered the immortal combat monarch technique. The cultivators around Luofeng Mountain were all stunned. They could not believe that Dong Huang had actually used the divine technique that Yang Hao had displayed and was fighting endlessly with him. This is the 10,000 mammoth divine power. The voice of Emperor Yang came from high up in the sky. There was no emotion in his voice, as if he was not moved and was very calm. What's going on? In the eyes of Ji Yufei and He Tian, Dong Huang's great technique was interpreted in a different way. Dong Huang's manifestation of all things was very similar to the chaotic secret art, one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. Imitating and using the opponent's divine arts was an invincible divine art. It was an invincible divine art that made the opponent feel like they were fighting themselves. The art of the immortal battle emperor was a secret art of the Yang royal family. Even the side branches of the royal family were not qualified to cultivate this art. Only the direct descendants of the royal family could cultivate it. Dong Huang came from the Dong Huang clan of the Eastern Domain, so it was impossible for him to cultivate the art of the immortal battle emperor of the Yang royal family. This was the art of the immortal battle emperor that he had derived from the 10,000 mammoth divine power. But even if it was a fake art of the immortal battle emperor, it was still very shocking. Nice move. Yang Hao shouted, and his entire body shone with dazzling divine light. The dragon on his body seemed to be about to rush out of the void, exuding endless dragon might. Soaring dragon force. Yang Hao seemed to have transformed into a true dragon as he struck out with his strongest punch. He transformed the power of the soaring dragon into this strike. His fist was like a true dragon as it soared through the 9 heavens, emitting a destructive aura that made people's hearts palpitate. Bam! The entire void in front of Yang Hao collapsed and then shattered, turning into an extremely chaotic power that rushed towards Dong Huang. The power of the soaring dragon was too strong and unstoppable. In the face of absolute power, all divine arts were useless, and Dong Huang was sent flying. After Yang Hao sent Dong Huang flying, he took a deep breath. Roar! A dragon roar came from Yang Hao's mouth. This dragon roar shook the heavens and the earth. Dark cracks appeared in the void, and the entire area was shaking. It's the roar of the azure dragon. The cultivators near Luofeng Mountain were shocked. Some cultivators hurried to hide far away, while the cultivators closest to Luofeng Mountain bled from the roar and fainted. Even Ji Yufei and the others felt their ears ringing. For a moment, they could not hear anything. Roar of the azure dragon. Ji Yufei saw Yang Hao use this killing art and was secretly shocked. He was surprised that the Yang royal family had the killing art of the dragon clan. The roar of the azure dragon was a killing art of sound. It killed with sound. Yang Hao's roar made Dong Huang feel a great impact, and his entire body was sent flying thousands of feet away. Divine light flowed on Dong Huang's 9 heavenly meteorite iron armor. Divine patterns of the Great Path appeared, reducing the lethality of the roar of the azure dragon to the minimum. This is a saint garment. The cultivators watching the battle could not help but be surprised. Dong Huang was fighting with someone wearing the saint garment. How could he fight? Could it be that someone could break through the defense of the saint garment? The Dongfang family has a lot of good things, He Tian said to himself. He stared at the saint garment on Dong Huang's body, and his eyes flashed. The saint garment made from the 9 heavenly meteorite iron was definitely extraordinary. Dong Huang's entire body was covered in the saint garment. The patterns on the saint garment were faintly discernible, and it could dissolve any attack. Dong Huang was already in an invincible position. This is not fair. Among the cultivators of the Yang royal family, someone said. Dong Huang was wearing the saint garment. There was no way to fight. Even if Yang Hao was a semi-saint, it would be difficult for him to break through the defense of the saint garment. You chose the place for the battle. It is fair for you to choose this place. The tall and thin elder of the 3 Dongfang elders sneered. Buzz. At this moment, a sudden vibration came from Yang Hao's body. Then, A divine weapon rushed out from his body and was held in his hand. An aura that could change the color of heaven and earth spread from Yang Hao's hand. Everyone was shocked. Even Jiu Fei and the others could not help but be moved. The divine weapon in Yang Hao's hand was a big spear. The body of the black spear was covered with ancient patterns of the Great Path. It was a special kind of pattern of the Great Path. It was like a small dragon that was imprinted on the spear. The whole spear was like a sleeping black dragon, and the aura it emitted was frightening. The weapon of the Ren Huang, the dragon spear. When the three Dongfang elders saw the spear in Yang Hao's hand, their breathing became faster. Chapter 1595. Welcome, everyone. Although the battle between Dong Huang and the second prince of the Yang kingdom had not started for long, the combat power that the two had displayed was frightening. It was hard to imagine that these two cultivators were young cultivators who had only risen in the last 100 years. This kind of combat power was enough to suppress some of the older cultivators. Buzz. The air shook. Runes of the Great Path appeared on Dong Huang's ninefold meteorite armor. No one could see Dong Huang's true appearance. This was a holy robe that could block all divine spirits. Unless a saint-level existence came, no one would know whether Dong Huang was a man or a woman. On the saint robe, Tao patterns interweaved, exuding a majestic holy might. All the spectators had no choice but to retreat even further away. This was a supreme and holy pressure, and no one could withstand it. Under the protection of this sacred garment, which was refined from the ninth heaven meteorite iron, Dong Huang did not suffer any impact at all. His whole body was surging with essence qi, and all kinds of phenomena appeared around him. This kind of magic was too shocking. It could imitate and deduce the opponent's method, making one almost invincible. Moreover, Dong Huang was protected by the holy robe. It was hard to say who would win and who would lose in this battle. The Dongfang family had a foundation, and so did the Yang dynasty. After all, the Yang dynasty had once produced a Ren Huang and had a powerful inheritance. A pitch-black spear appeared in Yang Hao's hand. The spear was engraved with countless runes. These runes were a little special and looked like little dragons. At first glance, it seemed as if there were countless little dragons swimming around the spear. A shocking aura emanated from the black spear. This spear was extraordinary. Some people thought of a Ren Huang divine weapon left behind by the ancestors of the Yang dynasty, the dragon spear. This Yang Hao had brought this divine weapon. The dragon spear, high up in the sky, the three elders of the Dongfang family looked a little unhappy. The Yang dynastic overlord had given the dragon spear to Yang Hao. Did the Yang dynastic overlord already see Yang Hao as the next dynastic overlord? Buzz. Yang Hao shook the spear in his hand. The entire space in front of him trembled. Although it did not emit any divine power, its power was enough to shake the space. It really is a dragon spear. Even Dong Huang couldn't remain calm now. The dragon spear was too threatening to him. One had to know that the ancient Ren Huang was an existence second only to the extreme path supremacy. Even a prospective supreme martial artist would have to retreat when encountering a human sovereign. How could a divine weapon refined by a human sovereign be ordinary? This black spear was definitely a divine weapon that was even more terrifying than a great saint weapon. It was powerful enough to destroy all saint weapons. Swoosh. Yang Hao didn't hesitate. He shook the great spear in his hand and stabbed towards Dong Huang. A black light streaked across the sky like a bolt of lightning. The pitch-black spearhead was aimed at Dong Huang's head. If Dong Huang was pierced by this spear, even if he had the protection of the sage garment, he would probably be pierced through by the dragon spear in Yang Hao's hand. Even his primordial spirit would not be able to escape. However, just as the dragon spear was about to pierce East Emperor's body became blurry again, as if he had merged with the surrounding void. The dragon spear pierced right through Dong Huang's shadow. Just like before, it was as if it was piercing the air, without any point of impact. Boom! At this moment, a terrifying pressure suddenly exploded above Yang Hao's head. A wave of power that could shake the heavens came down from the sky. A huge seal appeared in the sky above Yang Hao's head and pressed down on him. What? High up in the sky, from the chariot of Emperor Yang, there was a cry of surprise. An aura that looked down on the 9 heavens and 10 earths emanated from the huge seal. All living beings in the world trembled under the pressure of this huge seal. The seal of the human sovereign. This is the legendary seal of the human sovereign of the Eastern Territory. Some of the old antiques recognized this huge seal. Everyone was shocked to the extreme. What was going on? It was just a battle between the young experts, but they had to use the human sovereign's divine weapon. Rumble, the world was shaking. The seal of the human sovereign became as huge as a mountain. It pressed down from the sky, and the void below it was constantly annihilated. The divine power of the human sovereign had not fully recovered. It had only emitted a wisp of divine power, but it had already crushed the world. If the seal of the human sovereign was fully recovered, what would the scene be like? Countless cultivators who were watching the battle on Luofeng Mountain were fleeing for their lives. The divine power of the human sovereign was so mighty that even the mighty figures felt great pressure. Only Jiyu Fei and the others were still watching the battle from the top of the mountain. The power of the human sovereign's divine weapon made them secretly shocked. The divine weapon refined by the human sovereign was different from ordinary holy weapons. The human sovereign's divine weapon was peerless and powerful. It was equivalent to a continuation of the life of the human sovereign. Even the great holy weapon could not be compared with the human sovereign's divine weapon. It can't be that the soul of the weapon has already been born. He Tian's voice was trembling. It should be known that only the holy weapons of the extreme great path could give birth to the soul of the weapon. If the human sovereign's divine weapon also had a soul, it would be too heaven-defying. Jiyu Fei did not say anything. His body emitted an aura that enveloped the entire mountain, isolating the divine power of the human sovereign's divine weapon. Roar. Yang Hao encountered the greatest crisis. The dragon's spear in his hand directly pierced upwards to meet the seal of the human sovereign that was pressing down from the sky. They were both human sovereign's divine weapons, and they were about to collide. This time, even Overlord Yang and the 3 elders of the Dongfang family were shocked. Overlord Yang led the cultivators of the 8 royal families to drive the chariot and quickly retreated. The 3 elders of the Dongfang family also shook their bodies and instantly retreated hundreds of miles away. Boom! In an earth-shattering noise, the 2 human sovereigns' divine weapons collided together. At that moment, the world lost its color, the mountains and rivers collapsed, and the void between heaven and earth turned into nothingness. Even the place where the 2 dragons were fighting for the pearl could not withstand the mighty divine power of the human sovereign. Luofeng Mountain collapsed immediately, and endless dragon chi of the earth surged out from the depths of the earth. The dark dragon spear madly swallowed the dragon chi of the earth, and the countless patterns branded on the spear gradually lit up. This human sovereign's divine weapon was gradually awakening. Yang Hao did not choose this place as the absolute location at random. Bang! The dragon spear vibrated and actually knocked the mountain-like seal of the human sovereign away. So far in the battle, Emperor Donghuang was forced to retreat for the first time. The human sovereign's divine weapon of the Yang royal family was awakening. Oh no! The 3 elders of the Dongfang family felt the mighty aura on the dragon spear, and all of their expressions changed. Yang Hao was using the endless dragon chi of the earth to completely awaken the dragon spear. If the dragon spear was really completely awakened, even a great saint would not be a match for Yang Hao. This is a book recommended by a friend. Those who like it can check it out. Chapter 1596. Welcome, everyone. The Renhuang divine weapon of Royal Yang clashed with the Renhuang divine weapon of the Dongfang family. This was a battle between Renhuang divine weapons. Destructive power swept out in all directions. Not even the 2 dragons fighting for the pearl could not withstand such Renhuang divine might. The fallen Phoenix Mountain collapsed immediately, turning into dust and dissipating between heaven and earth. The 2 mountains around the fallen Phoenix Mountain also collapsed. Endless dragon chi of the earth surged up from the depths of the earth. The dragon veins were damaged, and the dragon chi was leaking. The dragon veins that had lost dragon chi were destroyed and could no longer gather dragon chi. The terrain of the 2 dragons fighting for the pearl had changed. The dragon spear in Yang Hao's hand was madly devouring the dragon chi of the earth. The dragon spear was shaking as if it had a life of its own and was jumping with joy. The endless dragon chi of the earth caused the dragon spear to show signs of recovery. The Renhuang divine might spread in all directions. All creatures within a 10,000-mile radius were trembling. It was as if a supreme emperor was gradually awakening. The ancestral dragon pattern on the body of the dragon spear seemed to have come to life. Beams of divine light flowed along the body of the dragon spear, and the pattern was faintly discernible. This was definitely not a good thing for Donghuang. Voom! The dragon spear was shaking. The aura coming from the dragon spear was rapidly increasing. The true Renhuang divine might began to appear. All the cultivators were dumbfounded. This was no ordinary battle. It involved the collision of the lineages of two Renhuang. At this time, even Ji Yufei was shocked. The Renhuang divine weapon was peerless and powerful. The Renhuang divine might was awakened. Even they felt shocked. As Ji Yufei thought about it, the shadow of a giant cauldron appeared from his body. It then covered He Tian and Ji Yuzhong under it, blocking the Renhuang divine might. Kill. The dragon spear was awakening. Yang Hao's fighting will was like a rainbow. He shot straight up into the sky, causing the dragon chi of the earth to rise. The dragon chi rose into the sky like huge dragons, gathering towards the dragon spear. Shocking killing intent appeared. Although the dragon spear was not fully awakened, it was enough to kill Donghuang. Donghuang sneered. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat a mouthful of blood on the human emperor's seal. The human emperor's seal, which had already shrunk to the size of a fist, immediately appeared with numerous Dao patterns. He did not hesitate to consume his blood essence to activate the human emperor's seal. Boom! A monstrous Renhuang aura erupted from that ancient seal, and a power that had been dormant was triggered. The entire sky was trembling as if it would collapse at any moment. Damn it! Yang Hao sensed the terrifying pressure descending from above his head, and his expression couldn't help but change greatly. His opponent could also awaken the mortal emperor's seal. In this way, he would lose his advantage. Roar! A dragon's roar rang out. The dragon spear in Yang Hao's hand emitted a vast dragon's might that seemed to originate from ancient times. It turned into a black dragon and soared into the sky, charging towards Donghuang. Divine weapon transforming into a dragon, this is a treasure with a weapon soul. The old fellows of some great powers were dumbstruck. The ancient draconic might was vast and mighty in the heavens and the earth, and it deterred all things in the world. It was sufficient to look down upon the entire mortal dimension. It really does have a weapon soul, but it's not a divine weapon of the supreme path. On top of the mountain, Ji Yufei and the others were also incomparably shocked. The human emperor's divine weapons were indeed extraordinary. Unlike ordinary divine weapons, they actually had a weapon soul, just like the divine weapons of the supreme path. A divine weapon with a weapon soul was no longer a weapon in the ordinary sense. A divine weapon with a soul was equivalent to a special life form. If the weapon soul was awakened, it could even attack on its own. An extreme divine weapon refined by an extreme supreme being was such an existence. At this time, the two divine weapons of the supreme path were awakened, and both possessed a terrifying divine might that could shock the heavens. The entire area was shaken by these two divine might. Mountains continued to collapse, and the entire area was in chaos. Only the mountain where Ji Yufei and the others were at, which was enveloped by an ancient cauldron, did not collapse. Stop! A loud shout was heard. Emperor Yang could no longer sit still. The three elders of the Dongfang clan could no longer sit still. The two human emperors' divine weapons were awakening, and under such circumstances, if the two divine weapons collided, it would cause a disaster. However, Yang Hao had already made his move, and the dragon spear had gradually awakened. This power was no longer something that Yang Hao could stop even if he wanted to. And Emperor Dong also made his move, and the ancient seal in his hand directly pressed down. Endless Dao patterns rushed out from the ancient seal, and countless Dao patterns intertwined, condensing into a terrifying power. These two madmen. Even Ji Yufei frowned. He did not care about the life and death of the two, but he had to be wary of the divine might of the Renhuang. A real ancient cauldron rushed out of his dantian, and then floated above his head. Streams of primordial chaos qi fell from the big cauldron, shrouding Ji Yufei and the others. What is that? Emperor Yang and the 3 elders of the Dongfang clan all noticed the existence of the cauldron of mountain and river. Even they were extremely shocked when they saw the cauldron of mountain and river. Could it be the legendary cauldron? The 3 elders of the Dongfang clan had lived for countless years, and naturally knew many great secrets of the world. The appearance of the cauldron of mountain and river made them think of the legendary divine weapon. It can compete with the Renhuang divine weapons. 2 bright divine lights shone from Emperor Yang's chariot, and those were the eyes of Emperor Yang. At this time, the 2 Renhuang divine weapons were about to collide, and no one could predict the consequences. After all, these were divine weapons refined by the Renhuang. The collision of the 2 divine weapons would probably turn the entire area into chaos, and it might even affect the capital of the Yang dynasty, Yang City, which was 3,000 miles away. However, Yang Hao and Emperor Dong had already made their moves, and no one could stop them. The collision of the 2 Renhuang divine weapons seemed to be irreversible. Everyone felt a great sense of danger, and all of them desperately wanted to escape from this area. There were countless cultivators gathered here, and if the divine might of the Renhuang spread out, it would be a terrible disaster. Everyone present would probably be in danger of being annihilated. If they were to be affected by the divine might of the Renhuang divine weapon, it would be a terrible death. At that critical moment, a figure silently appeared between the 2 Renhuang divine weapons, and then stretched out his hands, pressing towards the dragon spear and the seal of the Renhuang. Who is this? How dare he fight against 2 Renhuang divine weapons by himself? Seeing this scene, Ji Yufei could not help but be unable to react. This was simply courting death. Even he, who had a divine weapon of the Great Path, did not dare to intervene. Boom! There was a violent tremor, and the person's body emitted a towering black aura. This black aura only took a moment to cover the entire area, and the originally sunny world was instantly pitch black, as if the night had suddenly come. It's him. Ji Yufei's shock was no small matter. Chapter 1597. Welcome, everyone. Xianyin ghost qi spread in all directions. A figure appeared between the dragon spear and the seal of the emperor. He actually resisted the 2 Renhuang divine weapons by himself. What? Everyone was shocked by the sudden change. Who was this person? He was so powerful that he could resist 2 Renhuang divine weapons by himself. What kind of concept was this? It was too shocking. Even Emperor Yang and the 3 Dongfang elders could not believe what they saw. Could this person be a saint, a great saint, or even a quasi-supreme? A truly awakened Renhuang divine weapon could definitely kill a saint. However, with Yang Hao and Donghuang's cultivation and methods, they were far from being able to completely awaken the Renhuang divine weapon. Even so, an awakened Renhuang divine weapon was not something that anyone could compete with. The person who suddenly appeared was pitilessly powerful and terrifying. It's him. When Ji Yufei saw the figure, he could not help but be moved. It was a familiar person. To be precise, it was an emperor, but not a human emperor. Ghost Emperor Fengdu. He Tian's voice trembled. This figure had appeared in the Battle of the Sky Market. Of course, neither Ji Yufei nor He Tian knew that it was Ghost Emperor Fengdu who had displayed his supreme magical power and suppressed the sky-reaching platform. Ji Yufei's understanding of Ghost Emperor Fengdu was much deeper than He Tian's. It should be known that he had experienced the turmoil of the demon ancestor in the northern land. That war almost affected the entire northern region. It was earth-shattering. The scene of the Ghost Emperor fighting against the demon ancestor still appeared clearly in Ji Yufei's mind. Open. Ghost Emperor Fengdu's body was surrounded by ghost qi. He exerted force with both hands and directly shook away the 2 Renhuang divine weapons. The 2 Renhuang divine weapons were like ordinary divine weapons in front of him. Buzz. The divine weapons vibrated. The dragon spear and the seal of the emperor emitted a faint emotional fluctuation. These 2 Renhuang divine weapons were actually frightened. The 2 great emperor divine weapons seemed to be afraid of Ghost Emperor Fengdu. Seeing this scene, Ji Yufei was extremely shocked. There was really a divine spirit coming from the Renhuang divine weapon. It was a supreme divine weapon with a soul, just like the divine weapon of the supreme great path. The power of Ghost Emperor Fengju was enough to make Ji Yufei's heart palpitate. Such a powerful existence had already exceeded the scope of his imagination. There was actually such a character in the human realm. In the human world, saints were extinct. However, the battle prowess displayed by Ghost Emperor Fengju couldn't help but make people think of saints. To be able to resist two great sovereign divine weapons by himself, Ghost Emperor Fengju's cultivation was probably comparable to a saint. Rumble. The whole world was plunged into darkness, and heaven and earth trembled. Ghost Emperor Fengju displayed a great divine ability, and his two palms directly pressed towards the dragon spear and the seal of the human sovereign. He wanted to suppress these two human emperor divine weapons. At this moment, Yang Hao and Dong Huang had already been sent flying thousands of meters away by the power of the Ghost Emperor. The current situation was already beyond their control. Endless Tao laws emerged on the hands of Ghost Emperor Fengju. Those hands were like the sky. As his hands pressed down, the dragon spear and the seal of the human sovereign let out a mournful cry. Heaven-defying, under the protection of the mountain and river cauldron, the mountain where Ji Yufei and the others were located was not affected at all. The extreme Tao sacred weapon blocked all the power outside. Ghost Emperor Fengju used his hands to suppress two human emperor divine weapons. Such battle prowess was heaven-defying. He Tian's voice trembled. Such an existence was absolutely invincible in the human world. Without any suspense, the dragon spear and the seal of the human sovereign tried to struggle, but it was useless. Ghost Emperor Fengju's hands pressed down, and the dragon spear and the seal of the human sovereign finally calmed down. It was too powerful. Emperor Yang and the three elders of the Dongfang clan were speechless. It's actually the Ghost Emperor. At this time, some old antiques had already recognized the person who came. Ghost Emperor Fengju was definitely one of the most powerful existences in the human realm. Such an existence broke common sense and was difficult to speculate. The human sovereign divine weapons were suppressed by Ghost Emperor Fengju. The expressions of Emperor Yang and the three elders of the Dongfang clan were not very good. However, they did not dare to offend the Ghost Emperor. In front of an existence like Ghost Emperor Fengju, although the Yang imperial family and the Dongfang clan both had human sovereign inheritances, they were not enough. Some people had already guessed the origin of Ghost Emperor Fengju. In the end, endless ghost energy condensed into countless Tao patterns, directly suppressing the dragon spear and the seal of the human sovereign. The two human sovereign divine weapons were sealed and then taken away by Ghost Emperor Fengju. The endless ghost energy began to retreat like a tide. In just a few breaths, the Xianyin ghost energy that covered the sky was completely submerged into Ghost Emperor Fengju's body. The dusky world shone brightly again. The sun hung high in the sky, sprinkling endless sunlight. However, everyone felt a chill, a bone-piercing chill. The human realm cannot have such power for the time being. I will take away the human sovereign divine weapons. After 100 years, you can send someone to take them back. Ghost Emperor Fengju's voice did not carry a trace of emotion. He coldly glanced at Emperor Yang and the three elders of the Dongfang clan. Then, he glanced at Ji Yufei below and directly tore apart heaven and earth, escaping. No one dared to object. Even Emperor Yang and the three elders of the Dongfang clan did not dare to stand out. It should be known that in the past 100 years, Ghost Emperor Fengju represented invincibility in the human realm. It should be known that during the turmoil of the sky market, it was Ghost Emperor Fengju who took action. With his own strength, he suppressed the sky-reaching platform and resolved the turmoil caused by the appearance of the sky-reaching platform. 100 years ago, Ghost Emperor Fengju was already able to suppress the sky-reaching platform. Now, it could be said that it did not take much effort for him to suppress the two human sovereign divine weapons. No one thought that the battle between Yang Hao and Dong Huang would attract such an invincible existence. Ji Yufei also did not think that he would meet Ghost Emperor Fengju again. I am afraid that this person is even more terrifying than the saints, Ji Yuzhong said. There were many rumors about Ghost Emperor Fengju in the human realm. Ji Yuzhong had naturally heard of them. It took a while for Ji Yufei to recover his wits and say, "Without reaching that realm, you won't know how powerful an existence like that is." Originally, he thought that he had cultivated to the realm of Almighty Emperor. With this kind of cultivation, he was already powerful enough in the human realm. However, when he saw the power displayed by Ghost Emperor Fengju, he was filled with emotion. He realized that he was not strong enough. The battle between Yang Hao and Dong Huang could not continue. The human sovereign divine weapons were suppressed by Ghost Emperor Fengju for 100 years. This was a major event for the Yang imperial family and the Dongfang clan. Emperor Yang left with Yang Hao, and the 3 elders of the Dongfang clan also left with Dong Huang. Falling Phoenix Mountain no longer existed. The place where the 2 dragons fought for the pearl was destroyed. The dragon vein was destroyed, but the dragon energy of the earth was still constantly surging out from the depths of the earth. This can't be wasted. He Tian directly took out a red gourd and then pulled out the stopper. He was about to use a divine ability to collect the dragon energy. However, at this time, there were people faster than him. Several figures rushed from afar and directly entered the earth.